Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm, and you are watching What If Evil Sharingan Naruto accidentally goes to DC Universe. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now, wasting no time, let's start the story.
The first planet in the binary Tattoo star system, Tatooine, was a harsh desert planet orbiting twin suns. It belonged to the Outer Rim Territory's Arcanese sector. Poor locals who primarily farmed moisture for a living lived there. Retailing used equipment and dealing in scrap were additional activities. One of the oldest planets in the known universe, Tatooine was made up of a silicate rock crust, a rocky mantle, and a molten core. Numerous pre-arid geological formations were left behind when the planet's vast oceans dried up. Other noteworthy geological features were the undulant wastes, a very rocky region of the planet, the Dune Sea, a huge desert that was rich in sodium, and the Mushroom Mesa, a huge formation of giant standing stones. The days were very bright and dry because of the twin suns in the sky, especially at double noon. It was an unidentified area of Tatooine, a sandy planet. At the top of a cliff stood a solitary, short figure, his face hidden by a drawn hood of a tattered, stained, and torn cloak. He was observing the twin suns as they blazed out of the clear blue sky, illuminating the planet's vast desert wastes with dazzling white light from the cliff. The resulting glare filled the spaces between the great cliff faces and the isolated mountain outcroppings that were the only distinguishing feature of the planet, rising off the flat, sandy surface in a wet shimmer of scorching heat. He asked, as if to no one, "So, did you find anything?" without taking his eyes off the wide desert in front of him. A female voice telepathically responded, "Yes, master. I did," and a black raven emerged from his shadow to perch on his left shoulder. Compared to other ravens, she was larger. She had two different colored eyes, one red and the other purple, and her body was covered in purple markings. "So what is it, Karasu? Chan?" "Master, we're on a planet named Tatooine. It is a harsh desert world orbiting twin suns along the outer rim of the galaxy. This planet is far away from the Green Lantern Corps, so it's pretty much lawless." "The Green Lantern Corps? They are an intergalactic police force, master." He said, "Oh, an intergalactic police force. That's interesting," with a laugh in his voice. "Did you find anything about them?" "Other than their name, I got nothing." "That's fine, please continue." "The planet is ruled by the Hutts. They're immense slug-like creatures that have a thick body with a long muscular tail and small arms located on the upper body," she continued. "Anyway, most settlers operate moisture farms further out, deeper into the desert, but cities such as Mos Espa and Mos Eisley attract a wide range of criminals and rogues. Tatooine's many dangers include sudden sandstorms, bands of roving Tusken raiders, and carnivorous krayt dragons. This planet is also known for dangerous pod races, rampant gambling, and legalized slavery." The individual said, Good job, Karasu Chan," as he reached up and removed his hood to reveal what it had concealed. He appeared to be a fair-skinned boy of about 10 years old, with blonde hair that was slightly tinted black and spiky. There was a tiny violet rhombus mark on his forehead, and his dark blue eyes glowed from an angular face. He was Naruto Uzumaki, Madara Uchiha's grandson and legitimate heir, and the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. "I never imagined that my altercation with Shinju would turn out this way." He looked up at the sky and thought to himself, "Now, Karasu and I are in a completely different dimension. However, a new dimension also brings with it new difficulties, battles, and an entirely different kind of adventure. Well, I'd like to know something as well." His gaze centered on the marking across his palm, which resembled the black Chinese dragon with the single blood dot red eye, and he glanced down at his left hand. "What did Shinju's chakra do to me besides making me younger?" Naruto sensed 6 rapidly approaching energy signatures that were filled with negative emotions, so he turned around and looked in a specific direction. When he noticed 6 aliens that resembled reptiles using metallic discs as platforms to hover around 4 feet above the ground, his eyes narrowed. Their faces were rather unusual. They had taper-like snouts, big, round, multifaceted eyes, and 2 saucer-shaped antennae on top of their heads. All of them had metallic objects in their hands that he recognized as blasters. One alien said in his native tongue, well, what have we got here? A little human child." "What?" Naruto pondered. What the alien in front of him was saying was completely unknown to him. To avoid the need for a good translator, I really need to learn their language. Another alien hovering next to him pointed his blaster at Naruto and said, "Yeah, he's alone. We can either kill him or sell him on the black market. Put your hands up, kid." He attempted to demonstrate his point by shooting Naruto with a blaster bolt, but to his surprise, an invisible shield encircled Naruto's body, preventing his attack. What? According to one of his colleagues, it's some kind of shield. Despite firing their blaster bolts at Naruto, all of the aliens' efforts proved to be in vain. Naruto was not even scratched and was in perfect health. Naruto said icily, "Sorry, but your playtime is over," as his irises flushed and 3 black commas whirled around the pupil. Goodbye. Their pathetic screams of agony went unheard in the vast, deserted desert. After that incident, several months went by. Ignoring the dangerous-looking residents of many species, our favorite ninja was strolling down Mos Espa's main street. He was avoiding unwanted attention from others by donning a genjutsu. On Tatooine, Mos Espa was a spaceport. The majority of the inhabitants were either poor shopkeepers and moisture farmers attempting to make ends meet in the hostile desert or were part of the criminal enterprise with the huts. Naruto was on his way to Mos Espa, where the largest retail establishment was engaged in junk dealing. Naruto finally reached the plaza, which was encircled by a number of junk and spaceship dealers, after a few minutes of walking. He looked around and found the dingy junk shop, which was a suitable shop. A plump blue alien greeted him as he entered the store. The alien said in his native tongue, "What do you want?" in a rude manner. Naruto showed him his Sharingan and said, "I want a good spaceship, and I want it free." 8 years later, 3 people were observing the monitors surrounding them on a US military base on Earth, keeping an eye out for any activity in space. It was their responsibility to monitor all space activity. The majority of their time was spent observing space objects and watching monitors. The male soldier with the blonde hair stated, "Captain, an unknown thing, the same size as a small car, is heading towards the Earth's atmosphere," drawing the attention of his senior officer. Captain looked down at the readings on one of the computer screens and asked, "Is it a meteoroid?" He had a long, vertical scar across his left eye and was a tall, bald man. The female soldier replied, "No, Captain. It appears to me to be a sphere of some sort." She had tanned skin and gorgeous long black hair. As they searched for more details about the unknown object, the 2 soldiers were seated back in seats suspended in midair. An alien spaceship? The soldier woman shook her head. "We are not sure." "Find out. Where is it heading?" "We can't. Something is interfering with the system. We can't get a lock. At this rate, it's going to land somewhere on Earth," the man with the blonde hair said as he typed on a piano. All computer screens abruptly went black, and odd symbols began to appear on them. The captain slammed his hand angrily on the table upon realizing what was happening. He yelled, "What the hell is going on?" and demanded an explanation. In response, the female soldier frantically typed on her keyboard to retrieve any information she could find. "We're not sure, Captain. Someone has just hacked our computers." Adding, "At this rate, there's nothing we can do." The male soldier's hands were typing rapidly on his own keyboard. The captain looked up at the screen that was made up on the roof with a deep frown. Suddenly, a red symbol he had never seen before took the place of all computer screens. 9 tomo were located in the 3 circles nearest the center of the symbol's 4 concentric circles, which were arranged in a ripple pattern. More began to appear gradually, filling all the screens. Captain questioned sharply, "I don't suppose you have an explanation for that, do you?" "Sorry, Captain, but whatever it is, it's negating all of our attempts to connect our computers," the soldier replied. "Oh no." Captain pondered as he watched the final screen turn red before the symbol reappeared directly in front of him. It was much larger this time. A glance around revealed the same symbol to his left and right, as well as behind him. They were there for a few seconds, and then they were gone. "Captain," the female soldier with the black hair said uneasily. "What? The system is returning to normal." After she said, "But, we've lost all our data on that thing," her partner quickly followed. "Damn it!" exclaimed Captain. "Contact all our bases and try to find out something about this." "I have already done it, Captain," the female soldier declared. "And they are all victims of the type of attack. It's one of the most powerful cyber attacks in our history." The mysterious spherical spacecraft entered Earth's atmosphere and sank toward Antarctica, the coldest continent on Earth, in between cyber attacks. With a huge explosion, it smashed through an ice shelf entirely and hit the ground. The whole area shook from the impact, sending snow flying and creating cracks in the ice. A figure crawled out of the spacecraft as it opened. His height was a solid 5.11 feet. The dark cloak he wore obscured his face and body, leaving only 2 red eyes that glowed from beneath his hood. The man emerged from the crater in a levitation. When he looked at his ship, He sealed it with one hand, and the big, round spacecraft shrank to about the size of a baseball. He put the ship in his pouch and floated it toward himself. The man said to himself, "I like a small ship because it's easy to hide," and then he disappeared into a whirling vortex. So this is the Earth. The man from earlier was back. He was positioned atop one of Metropolis' tallest structures. After a brief pause, the man took off his hood to reveal Naruto Uzumaki's well-known face. Because of all the training he had done over the years, he was now physically 18 and had lost all of his baby fat. He had a lean, athletic build, was tall, attractive, and muscle-bound. He was wearing a red, black sleeveless armor over a black shirt with a circular red symbol and steel shoulder plating, as evidenced by his cloak blowing in the wind. In addition, he wore black boots with steel toes and black pants with steel knee plating and a ninja pouch strapped to his right thigh. He had fingerless gloves on each hand. A stunning green crystal necklace, crafted from a unique crystal gem, a micro A paragraph mark C cubed, Kesha Seiki, was dangling around his neck. Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage of Konohagakure, wore the necklace at one point. As she emerged from his shadow, Karasu said, "Master, could you please tell me what we are doing here on Earth?" The so-called heroes of Earth are well known, and I would personally like to meet them, particularly Batman and Superman. In the other galaxies, the Earth's so-called heroes, particularly Superman and Batman, were incredibly well known. Batman was renowned for his intelligence and guile, while Superman was known for his strength and skills. He contrasted their skills. They resemble the yin and yang. But why? To see their strengths and weaknesses, he stated. It will be fun to watch, because if there is one thing I love to do, it is messing with people's minds. Just like earlier today. He nodded and chuckled softly. Yeah, but it has also helped me to create my fake ID. Now, I've everything to prove that Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze is a citizen of the United States of America. Now, what? We'll wait and watch. Supergirl abruptly moved in front of them. They turned to see that she was using her supersonic speed and flight ability to go toward the north part of the city. And judging by the expression on his face, she was rushing. We're going after her, but first, Naruto said, removing a metallic half mask from his pouch. Change in plan, Karasu. Chan. Welcome back, Ryu. His blonde hair turned black as he put on a fresh Ryu mask, which clung to his face like a second skin. Almost entirely white, the new Ryu mask had black and red markings beneath its single eye hole. With the exception of Naruto's mouth and chin, the entire left side of his face was covered. Let's go. Naruto launched himself into the air and started to trace Supergirl's distinct energy mark. When Ryu or Naruto arrived, they witnessed Superman and Supergirl in action. Several of the armored trucks were smoking. Before teleporting to a tall tower to watch two super cousins, he used a chameleon jutsu to make himself invisible in order to avoid unwanted attention. As the two superpowered siblings charged in and stopped the men's bullets, it appeared that both cousins were handling bank robbers quite well. They simply bounced the bullets off their skins. Interestingly, Kryptonians look almost the same as humans and people from elemental nations, but when exposed to a yellow sun like Earth's, they gain nearly unthinkable superpowers. Flight, superhuman strength and speed, and immunity to nearly all physical harm. Naruto reflected, I need to learn more about these two super cousins. He saw how Superman and Supergirl dealt with the bank robber with ease. They were doing fine, and Superman's blonde cousin was showing that he wasn't a slacker when it came to giving villains a slap across the jaw. But Superman was smashed by two green beams and sent flying back into one of the armored cars before he could apprehend the final robber. Incredulous, Supergirl yelled out her cousin's name. She turned to see who had attacked them, but when another pair of green beams approached her, she received her own response. She was able to take off, but the shooter struck her with another beam, and she also struck the ground quickly and forcefully. The shooter emerged from hiding when he saw Superman and Supergirl both down. There was no denying that he was unique. Although his face was torn, the rest of him was made of wires, metal, and numerous glowing parts. Metallo, said Karasu. Naruto had her leaning on his shoulder. Naruto gave a nod. Metallo is an enemy of Superman. He was formerly a human criminal named John Corbin but is now merely a brain within a robotic body. He is powered by a kryptonite heart, he said. He had access to all official and unofficial data on all criminals worldwide after breaking into every military installation. He reminds me of someone else I know. You mean Akasuna no Sasori, right? Yes, Sasori of the Red Sand, who had turned his own body into living puppet to become one with his art, he acknowledged. Just like Sasori, Metallo also has one weakness, and it is his kryptonite heart, but again Superman can't use it against him, because a kryptonite is Superman's main weakness. He cracked a devil's face. Now, I wish I had some popcorn because this will be an interesting fight. Supergirl was confronted by Metallo. He was prepared to blast again. Not while I'm here, Superman yelled as he recovered from the explosion. He pushed Supergirl away from Metallo with a punch. Metallo punched Superman in the stomach in retaliation. Superman tackled him to the ground as he attempted another blow. Supergirl took a chance during the battle and used her heat vision to blast him away from Superman. Unrecovering from that kryptonite blast, Naruto and Karasu watched as Metallo and Super Cousins engaged in combat. Their energy reserves were low, and the green swirling inside them was depleting them, he realized after making a quick observation with his Sharingan. What do you think, Karasu? Chan? Both Superman and Supergirl. They don't have any fighting, rarely kicks. A lot of the times, their strategy is simply overpowering their opponent or use their other amazing abilities as an advantage and win the fight, she continued. Her voice carried a hint of seriousness. They need to learn proper fighting style. Yes, both Superman and Supergirl are immensely strong both in terms of muscle power and ability to take physical punishment, but they are not invincible, he stated. It would be a good thing for them to learn to fight with a little more sophistication. Raw power works against everyday mooks, but many of their opponents are strong enough to fight evenly with them, and knowledge of grappling, holds, breaks and pressure points would give them an edge in those situations. The altercation between Supergirl, Superman, and Metallo was over. Metallo was in a big crater, lying still. The supervillain was picked up by both Super Cousins. Without any backup plan, it's not a good idea to go near to your enemy who has your main weakness in his chest, said Karasu. Even though he looks unconscious, but we can't say that he's not faking it. Her suspicions were confirmed. Superman said, I'm going to take you to a jail, and he lifted Metallo off the floor. I don't think so, Metallo revealed abruptly as he opened his chest. Kryptonite rays hit Superman and Supergirl instantly, causing them to fall to the ground. He launched kryptonite beams at Superman and Supergirl once more, saying, You're a fool, Superman. You had your chance, but you lost it. As they both screamed in agony, they were struck directly. I'm your perfect enemy. I can use both of your weakness to my advantage. He braced himself for another kryptonite blast when a black blur struck him out of nowhere, hurling him at breakneck speed and slamming him into the armored van. The new individual in front of them was Naruto, disguised as a Ryu. His black cloak was blowing in the wind as he stared at Metallo. Supergirl blinked. However, there isn't any wind here. Metallo yelled, Who the hell are you? It had never occurred to him that there would be another hero. Ryu thumbed at himself and said, Me. Well, I'm no one. Metallo's eyes narrowed. Then get lost, he said, blasting Ryu with the kryptonite. By creating an invisible energy shield around himself, Ryu was able to deflect a blast with ease. Seeing that his attack had failed, Metallo hurried and threw a punch at Ryu, who dodged it with his quick reflexes before striking Metallo hard in the jaw. Metallo yelled, I'm tired of this, and then jumped at Ryu, launching punch after punch that Ryu continued to block or avoid. You've impressive strength, but you don't have speed, Ryu replied. He started delivering his own punches after deflecting numerous blows. Ryu outpaced Metallo, who attempted to keep up by dodging or blocking them. After avoiding the first few, he started to take punches to the face and stomach. Ryu had hit him once before. He gave Metallo a kick to the stomach, sending him flying back and slamming into the ground. Every onlooker was astounded by the new man's display of strength and speed. He was their new hero. Metallo, for his part, scowled and stood up. He swiftly seized a sizable chunk of the armored vehicle and hurled it at Ryu like a metallic frisbee, one that was jagged and razor sharp. Ryu didn't waste any time. He swiftly turned his attack around and faced Metallo. Only their fists were used to strike each other. Ryu remarked, You know, being made of metal have a certain disadvantage, as he and Metallo engaged in a street brawl in the city. What? Metallo exclaimed angrily. He was getting ready for a blast of kryptonite. Because metal is a good conductor of the electricity, Ryu explained. Ryu used his strength and agility to kick Metallo out of his way. He went through some hand seals at the same time that a black lightning crack began to form in his right hand before it was entirely consumed by it. It sounded like thousands of birds chirping in unison as the lightning struck. Kuroichidori. He made a gesture toward Metallo. Sharp spear. Metallo was struck by a spear made of black electricity that smashed into his body and sent thousands of volts of black electricity through him. Shit. Metallo cursed as the black electricity paralyzed his body, but his eyes winded in shock as he heard Ryu's voice from behind him. Don't let your enemy get behind you. Before pushing it into Metallo's back, Ryu invoked Amaterasu Fire on his right hand and focused it only on the fingertips. Blaze Release. Hell Stab 1. Finger Nukite. His hand melted a significant amount of Metallo's armor and barely missed his kryptonite heart as it pierced through both his chest and armor. As Metallo's eyes flickered on and off until they went completely dark, Ryu broke out of his technique and tore out the Metallo's kryptonite heart from his chest. Ryu started using his Sharingan to examine the kryptonite in Metallo's hand after realizing that he was down and wouldn't be getting back up anytime soon, not without his heart. He thought to himself, interesting, this thing has so much power. I need to study it. He took a circular disc-shaped device out of his pouch and set a kryptonite on it. The device secured the kryptonite by forming a semi-transparent, white cub around it. It will prevent the radiation from the kryptonite from entering. He then moved the kryptonite into his own dimension. Ryu telepathically said, Karasu-chan, do you know what to do? Karasu said, yes master, and then vanished into the darkness. Time to see those heroes. After that, he went to see Super Cousins. Supergirl and Superman felt the effects of a kryptonite waning, so they both attempted to stand up. Because Superman had more experience with a kryptonite than Supergirl, he was initially able to recover from his injuries. She continued to rub her head on the ground. A blonde teenager moaned, and rubbed the back of her head. Man of Steel asked his cousin, are you okay? Yes, just give me a few minutes. Both Super Cousins noticed that their enigmatic savior was approaching. The new man who appeared to be about his cousin's age piqued the interest of the Man of Steel. He attempted to see his entire face with his X-ray vision, but it was a complete failure. Man of Steel thought, I can't see behind his mask with my X-ray vision. Who is this man? As he raised an eyebrow at their fashion sense, Naruto or Ryu confronted Superman and his cousin Supergirl. He thought, I don't know about Superman, but his cousin is hot. She's perfectly fitted in that suit. He then became aware that Superman was speaking to him. Did you say something? His actions caused Supergirl and Superman to perspire. Superman held out a hand in front of him and said, thank you for saving me and my cousin, I am in your debt. Ryu responded, don't worry about it, and shook Superman's hand. Then he saw that the stunning blonde was massaging the back of her head. He knelt before her and covered her forehead with a glowing green hand. How are you feeling? Supergirl blushed a little at his tender touch and nodded when she sensed that the pain had subsided. Thank you. Ryu said, no problem, as he assisted her in standing up. Superman said, anyway, what is your name? A gorgeous woman with dark hair said, we also want to know your name, as she passed Naruto. With her dark hair, defined face, and eyes, she was undoubtedly a sight to behold. This, she said, pointing to the man beside her who had freckles and orange hair. I'm Lois Lane, reporter from the Daily Planet, and this. I'm Jimmy Olsen, one of the best photographers in the planet, the individual declared. Anyway, Lois said, taking out a small, exquisitely crafted portable tape recorder from her leather purse. She put it close to Ryu's lips. What is your name, hero? He said, call me Ryu. Superman heard the young man's name and thought, dragon. With haste, he added, and Miss Lane, I'm not a hero. Lois gave him a, are you serious? So who are you and where did you come from? She inquired. I'm no Oniya and I've Kamea. He paused quite dramatically, I've come from nowhere. Lois twitched her eye in frustration as she glared at him. I think, this is enough for today, Miss Lane. He was only a few meters away from her in the blink of an eye. Jimmy exclaimed, wow, his quickness impressed him. The body of Ryu began to scatter in a flock of crows, surprising everyone. Before I go, I've one advice to both of you, Superman and Supergirl. You two are immensely strong and have the ability to take physical punishment, but you two are not invincible. Both of you need to learn proper fighting style. He then called forth the kryptonite, which was in a semi-transparent white cub, and showed it to Superman. It's a payment for saving you and your beautiful cousin, he said, his entire body vanishing into a crow flock. Jimmy exclaimed, it was cool, with a gleam in his eyes. His style is even better than Batman. Batman blinked while typing quickly on a keyboard in an attempt to locate the Joker's most recent location in Gotham. Why am I suddenly compelled to murder someone? After giving it some thought, He shook his head and went back to work. It was similar to the Jenga-style maze, which appeared to be self-changing and never-ending. Its walls were made of a variety of materials, including concrete and stone. This was Maze of Infinity, Naruto's own dimension, an alternate space connected to his Sharingan. It was among the trickiest mazes. It had a delusion of its own to trick people. Additionally, the puzzles in Naruto's maze were twisted through 4 or more dimensions, in contrast to traditional mazes that operate in 3 dimensions. This allowed people to walk upside down, up staircases that aren't actually there, and in a world that defies perspective laws. In summary, it was similar to a large, multi-dimensional labyrinth with inverted staircases, impossible viewpoints, and the ability to create illusions. There were 9 continuously moving rooms in the maze as well. Every room had been unique from the others. They were the only safest locations in the dimension, along with the center of the maze. Additionally, Naruto's maze lacked an entrance and an exit, in contrast to conventional mazes. The sky was absent. The only people with the ability to enter and exit this dimension and change its structures were Naruto and Karasu. Naruto was in the middle of the puzzle at the moment. It was a big, round hall that could accommodate a lot of people. It featured paintings of every Hokage alongside some of the Element Nation's most significant ninja. The hall's ceiling resembled the sky and reflected the weather without any adverse effects. The big red symbol in the middle of the hall resembled the red eyes of the Jubi. Naruto was seated in front of the holographic screen in the center of the hall. The holographic keyboard was floating in front of him, and his fingers were flying through it. In the same semi-transparent white cub behind the screen was a kryptonite. Naruto was examining the green kryptonite's initial scan data. He remarked, "Learn something new every day," as he struck the holographic keyboard quickly. "These are serious energy readings." Karasu, who was observing Naruto, said, "What did you find, Master?" This small object has so much energy. It has enough power to fuel a large city," he said. "And about its effects on Kryptonians. I think, Kryptonians in some ways are a living solar battery. Their cells absorb electromagnetic radiation from stars like Earth's sun. A kryptonite's radioactivity possibly interferes with this process, driving the energy out of their cells in a painful fashion. It's only my theory. However, to reach any conclusion, I need a Kryptonian blood. Superman or Supergirl's blood." Naruto gave a nod. "Well, they are only Kryptonians, I know, but I'll think about it later," he replied. A new screen with a 3-dimensional holographic representation of a human body and DNA structure appeared as he pressed a few buttons on the holographic keyboard. Another picture of a green dragon statue appeared in front of them. "I've discovered another fascinating fact about a kryptonite. Its radiation is not entirely harmless to humans. Look at this. This is the image of the laughing dragon. It was carved in the china from a green rock thought to be a jade. However, the rock was in fact a kryptonite. According to the data, the laughing dragon had earned quite a foreboding reputation. Ever since it was carved in China nearly 30 years ago, it had passed through several owners, all of whom died prematurely. Before him, the laughing dragon's image vanished. He began analyzing more data on the screen and concluded, however, in comparison to Kryptonians, the kryptonite radiation takes too much time to show any ill effect on humans." There was silence for a few minutes, and then he spoke again. "Karasu-chan, did you find it?" Then she said, "Yes, Master, Clark Kent." 3-dimensional holographic images of Superman and Clark Kent appeared side by side as Naruto entered text into his holographic keyboard. He looked at both pictures and muttered to himself, "Only 2 things are infinite, the universe and human stupidity, and I'm not sure about the former. Seriously, they have the same height, same size and same build. They also have the same facial structure. Other than Clark's goggles and their hairstyle, they don't have any much difference. People are always failing to see the underneath of the underneath, Master. Or they have always overlooked simplest thing," he continued. Then a thought occurred to him, and he grinned. He spent several minutes typing into a keyboard, asking himself, if Clark Kent is Superman then. In front of them was a picture of a 17-year-old girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. Kara Kent, the cousin of Clark Kent. Supergirl. Both Clark Kent and Kara Kent were shown as their alter egos, Superman and Supergirl, in 3-dimensional holographic images. The day was wet. The earth was dampened by the soundless pelting of light rain. There was a cool, light breeze swimming just above the surface, but the atmosphere was unusually humid. The rapidly darkening clouds hinted at the possibility of worse weather. Meanwhile, Karasu was flying alongside our favorite ninja, who was hovering over the cloud. He was carrying his black cloak behind him, which resembled wings. His words were, "It's a time." He slammed his hand down on the cloud after biting his thumb and going through a lengthy sequence of hand seals. The words, "Kachiyose no Jutsu," summoning technique, were written in the sky by a silver circle rune that seemed to be written by an invisible hand. Before a dark hole that appeared to suck out everything in the sky took its place, a tiny, dark portal appeared in the middle of the rune circle. Then a massive floating island in the shape of a turtle appeared from the portal, followed by innumerable floating rocks. Using a combination of ancient Fuinjutsu and advanced alien technology, the Sky Island, see copyright A cubed, Sorajima, hovered over the cloud. The island was enormous and seemed to be covered in a large forest that was full of poisoned plants and rare herbs. It also had a mountain and a number of smaller, higher hills. In the middle of it was a lake in the shape of a spiral, resembling the emblem of the Uzumaki clan. This island had numerous secret training grounds, hidden temples, and a secret hideout belonging to the Uzumaki clan because it was formerly a part of the Uzushiogakure before it was destroyed. The island served as a fairly accurate representation of the ancient ninja period. "Let's go, Karasu-chan," Naruto said as he saw the Sky Island, and he and Karasu vanished into the whirling abyss before emerging on the Sky Island in front of a lavish-looking home. One of the most obvious modern buildings on the Sky Island was the house. It had been constructed atop one of the island's tallest cliffs. The house was lovely and spacious. There was a sizable training area, a water fountain, a large garden, and a large open area for special events all around it. Along with Karasu, Naruto exclaimed, "Home sweet home," as they entered the house. From the inside, the house was the ideal fusion of high-tech alien technology and modern art. It featured a large living room, a kitchen, a gym, a master bedroom, and additional space for guests. Additionally, it had a library with books on literature, alien languages, planet histories, and some basic medical literature. In addition to these, the house had a hidden underground base. It was far bigger than a typical house. It featured a fully furnished high-tech laboratory, a weapon room with a variety of weapons, including advanced alien and kunai weapons, and a medical room with all the latest medical equipment. There was also a hidden library on the base. In contrast to the house library, it was stocked with the most hazardous books. It contained scrolls on medical jutsu, nin, general taijutsu, and the scroll of seals, in addition to knowledge of various alien technologies and the Uzumaki, Uchiha, Senju clan. Despite Naruto's inability to use magic, the library had a large collection of books about it. To put it briefly, the most hazardous information about the elemental nation and the universe was kept in the underground library. Various items that Naruto had taken or obtained during his travels and battles were kept in a storage room at the base. There was a big empty area for spaceships and space pods on another thing base. The most crucial aspect was that the entire house and base were connected by an artificially intelligent computer called Merlin, or MERLIN, Most Enhanced Revolutionary Life Form and Intelligent Network. Merlin called Naruto. A holographic image appeared before him intently. Merlin was the one. With Kakashi's hairstyle, he resembled Naruto in terms of his humanoid shape. His eyes were a vivid shade of green. His body was composed of tiny, light green binary codes that were constantly shifting within him. He said, "Welcome, Master," with a British accent. "Start the process. Process will be started within 1 minute." MERLIN nodded. 1 minute later, the Sky Island was surrounded by a huge blue barrier. The barrier was marked with Fuinjutsu. Once it had covered the entire island, it began to make the island invisible. Naruto grinned as he remarked, "That's why I like the fusion of the ancient Fuinjutsu and modern technology." The entire Sky Island vanished from view. Naruto was on his way to a breakfast table after completing his daily morning routine. As MERLIN appeared next to him, he was wearing a black sleeveless jacket, brown pants, and a black ninja sandal. "Master, the breakfast will be ready in few minutes. Do you want any specific?" he asked with politeness. Naruto said, "No, thank you, Merlin," as he continued to move. After giving a nod, MERLIN vanished. Reaching over to a dining table, Naruto took a seat in one of the chairs. Little floating robots arrived with his breakfast a few minutes later, but he was too preoccupied with the incident that unintentionally gave rise to MERLIN 6 years prior to notice them. Start of flashback. "It's done," declared Naruto. He was examining samples from his latest experiment in his space lab. In his hand was a conical flask. The color of the liquid in the flask was changing from silver to blood red. Curious, Karasu inquired, "What is it?" Do you remember our incident on that isolated planet? Are you talking about that small alien robot? He showed her some strange DNA structure and holographic data. Yes, after looking closely at it and its armor, I found out this, he said. She asked, a DNA structure? She sounded shocked, and it was obvious. It wasn't an alien robot. It was a dead body of an alien, he stated. His Amur's material is stronger than any material I've seen. It's strong but not so heavy. It's also highly heat resistant. It also has some interesting quality like it can grow, it can heal and many more. Now, just imagine all the things that we can do with it if we succeeded to fuse it to living tissue or whole body. A metallic body that can withstand any kinds of damage and attack. After giving her a nod, Naruto held out his flask to her. It's a prototype, a mixture of my blood and some sample of that alien metal. I tried to fuse it with my blood, but healing factor in my blood is resisting the process. So, what now? I'm going to use my new medical seal and fusion beam emitter that I've borrowed from the planet Z's scientists. You have stolen it from them. Naruto uttered, whatever, Karasu. Chan, a lone wood clone developed next to him as he performed hand seals. The clone saluted him before he stepped in front of a holographic computer screen and said, go and take control of fusion beam emitter. The real Naruto shuddered and made his way to the designated spot in the laboratory. It was a tiny space. Thick protective glass guarded the room's entrance, and a complex ceiling array covered the entire space. Additionally, a sizable fusion beam emitter was aimed at the middle of the room's flooring. After setting the flask beneath the fusion beam emitter, Naruto left the room. He covered his eyes with protective goggles. Before placing both hands on the door, he performs 3 hand seals. The entire room turned white as all of the seals on the door and room glowed so brightly. Concurrently, the clone Naruto initiated the emitter of the fusion beam. The response was immediate. The room became so bright that nothing could be seen, not even by the Sharingan. Naruto questioned his wood clone, what is the condition of the prototype? His clone responded, it's stable. After examining the holographic screen's data, the screen suddenly started beeping loudly and displayed readings that were very different from what they had been before. His fingers began typing quickly on the keyboard. Shit. It's becoming unstable. Stop the chakra. Real Naruto hurried away from the door after cutting off the seal's chakra supply. The prototype grew increasingly unsteady. A huge crack appeared on the inside of the protective glass as the green light flashed, blaring the entire room. After a few minutes, everything returned to normal. As his clone nodded and entered a command on the screen, real Naruto gave the order, start the process to remove remaining smoke from the room, while the vacuum stared to clear the smoke from the interior. Naruto and his clone entered the room after the smoke had subsided. The room was a complete mess. All of the ceiling arrays and the majority of the fusion beam emitter had been destroyed by the blast. Naruto declared, this experiment is a complete failure. It was clone Naruto who exclaimed, boss, look at this. He was indicating the green energy ball on the floor, which was about the size of a baseball. It was resting where he had previously set up his prototype. There, the real Naruto began to investigate it. He said, pick it up, to his clone. When clone said, and why should I? It looks dangerous. Because I'm original. Clone muttered something like, original bastard, as he used his bare hand to pick up the energy ball. It tickles. A whimsical voice from the ball exclaimed. Clone questioned, huh, did this thing just talk to us? I think so, said Naruto. He grabbed the ball of energy from his clone's hand. Then he absorbed his clone back into his body with the other hand. Are you my creator? The energy ball that had spoken to Naruto caught his attention. Yes, I think so, was his response. It was an accident, though. He gave a headshake. Anyway, what is your name and what are you? I don't know. Then let's find out. So what is he? Inquired Karasu. Naruto looked at the holographic screen in front of him and said, after deep scan, I found out that he's a fusion of living metal and my chakra. I wanted to fuse that alien metal with my blood cell, but it somehow managed to fuse with my chakra. With a tone of surprise, she questioned, he's some kind of living forms of chakra and metal. An artificial tailed beast. Not really. Well, I don't know. But unlike us, he can't replenish his chakra, she replied. If I'm correct, he will disappear within 6 months. The holographic screen behind him abruptly began to change, displaying images of various planets. So I'll die in 6 months. That sucks, a green ball of energy said after hearing Naruto's statement. I want to see many things. I want to see the whole universe. Naruto's eyebrow went up. He inquired, how did you do that? As he switched the screen once more, an energy ball said, "You mean this? I don't know. But somehow, I can read data in the system." Naruto remarked, "Interesting," as he closely examined the green energy ball. "He doesn't have a lot of power, but if I think, there's a way to save you." Naruto worked tirelessly in his lab for the entire month. He modified the new system in his laboratory. "It's done," he declared, setting the final component in its proper location. He entered commands into the keyboard and turned on the new system. Abruptly, the holographic screen started to display the green binary numbers. A fresh humanoid figure appeared in front of him, and the screen began to crumble. He resembled a 12-year-old boy in shape, with bright green eyes and a spiky hairstyle. His body was composed of tiny, light green binary codes that were constantly shifting within him. "How are you feeling?" inquired Naruto. The figure remarked, "Better than before. What did you do?" "You had very limited power supply. To solve this problem, I did connect your body with my lab's power supply and its main network," said Naruto. "Now you have much more control over all electronics in the lab. Anyway, I always wanted an assistant, and with your power, you would be a great assistant to me. What do you think, Merlin?" "Merlin? It's your name. Most Enhanced Revolutionary Life Form and Intelligent Network, in short MERLIN. Thank you. I will be more than happy to assist you, a master." End of flashback. "Master," MERLIN uttered as he reappeared before him. Naruto said, "Yes, Merlin," as he drank orange juice. "You need to see this." Naruto saw a holographic copy of the Daily Planet newspaper for today. Naruto read the headline, "New Hero in Town," on the Daily Planet's front page and then spat out his orange juice across the table in a broad stream. It was, "What the hell?" he cried. "I had clearly told her that I'm not a hero." "Maybe she thought that you were kidding," MERLIN stated. Lois and Jimmy were on their way to the Metropolis City Bank when Jimmy said, "Lois, what are we doing here?" To which Lois replied, "I've some my personal task. But why I'm here? To give me company." As he muttered to himself, "God, I hate going to the bank." "What? Nothing, Lois." They went into the city bank. A few meters from a counter, they heard a voice they recognized. "Hello, Miss Lane." They turned to face the voice and saw Ryu leaning against a wall. He had an athletic build, was tall, handsome, and more muscle bound when his cloak was off. "Ryu," said Lois. "Miss Lane, we need to talk," he expressed gravely. "About what?" He stated, "About the Daily Planet's front page headline, without elaboration. I thought I had clearly told you that I'm not a hero." Her eyebrow went up. "I thought you were kidding." Sweat fell from his brow. Merlin was correct. Jimmy asked abruptly, "Why aren't people noticing you?" After observing that most people were acting strangely. "You are really famous after your fight with Metallo." "Because for them we aren't here," Ryu commented. "Go and try talk to someone." Jimmy approached the first individual to speak with him, but he didn't even look at him. Every person he had attempted to speak with experienced the same thing. Jimmy was occupied, but Ryu was conversing with Lois. "Miss Lane, I'm not joking. I'm Noda." Before he could say another word, automatic gunfire erupted from the bank's entrance. 5 men with rifles and black ski masks stormed in as the door exploded open. The muscular man yelled, "Everyone, get on the ground," and everyone knelt down, with some sobbing or screaming. "Is a bank robbery common things in the metropolis?" Ryu asked Lois after witnessing the entire incident. He took a shuriken out of his pouch without waiting for her response. He filled it with wind chakra and threw it at the first robber, severing his rifle in the process. Robber's rifle fell to the ground in 2 pieces, and he yelled in shock, "What?" Ryu took advantage of the circumstance and showed up in front of the bandits. He viciously kicked a robber in the head. The bank was filled with the sound of the impact. There was a loud crack as the body flew into the wall. Then he turned and began kicking in all directions. 2 robbers were struck and sent flying by the attacks. He vanished and then resurfaced behind the final 2 robbers. They were rendered unconscious when he grabbed their heads and slammed into each other. All of this took place in less than a minute. "Whoa!" exclaimed Jimmy. Supergirl burst into the bank. She declared, "I've heard the sirens." Ryu said, "You're kind of late," as he left a final robber who was unconscious. Supergirl said, "Ryu," recognizing him. "I thought you were not a hero," Lois remarked. She gestured to the robbers who were unconscious. "So what was that?" "They were annoying me." Supergirl questioned him, "Why don't you want to be a hero?" He said, "Sorry, some guys don't like to play a hero," and then he sank into the ground like a ghost. "Goodbye," he said. Jimmy remarked, Man, it was more awesome than a flock of crows, following Ryu's demonstration of his new technique. Lois remarked, "He reminds me of two people I know." "Who?" inquired Jimmy. "Batman and Superman," replied Supergirl. "An extremely arrogant Batman with Superman-like power," Lois said, nodding. Late at night, the moon shone brightly on the rather cacophonous city below, high in the starry sky. There was never any quiet in Metropolis City. Regardless, late night events were popular and enjoyable for many people. Patrolling was what Supergirl was doing. The Metropolis' tallest tower was where she stood. Just before everything turned black, she caught a glimpse of a single red eye. Supergirl woke up a few minutes later and rubbed her head. The blonde-haired beauty asked herself, "What just hit me? Are you all right?" "Huh," said Supergirl. Then she saw a familiar face as she looked up and blinked. "Ryu." "Yes," Ryu replied while glancing at her. "You were unconscious. What happened?" I don't remember anything," he remarked. It must be stress." He held his hand in front of her and said, "You need rest." Supergirl took his hand and got to her feet. "Thanks," she said. "And you were right, I really need rest. Anyway, Supergirl, if you ever need my help, just ask," he wrote as he gave her a coin-sized black circular device. "And take this." She removed it from his grasp and asked, "What is this?" "A small device. Using it you can contact me in any emergency." "Thanks again," she grinned. "There's no need for thanks, Supergirl," he responded. "However, remember one thing. Use this device only in emergency like you or this world are in danger, because I'm not a social worker." Ryu told her this and then disappeared into the whirling whirlpool. Naruto was sitting in front of a holographic computer in his Sky Island underground laboratory. When Merlin appeared on the screen, she asked, "Did you succeed in it?" "Yes," Naruto replied, pulling a tiny, silver-colored gadget out of his pouch and setting it on the table. "Good thing that she doesn't remember anything. Now, we have not only her blood, but also her full body scan data." The machine changed into a tiny machine. Like mosquito. It had a green, sharp mouth that resembled needles and was composed of kryptonite. The creature's tail was filled with a red liquid. Supergirl's blood was involved. "Secure her blood, Merlin. It'll help us to study the kryptonite's effect on the Kryptonians," said Naruto. A tiny robot stepped forward and grabbed the blood, securing device. Wearing the hood over his face, Naruto strolled through the streets. He was dressed in his typical civilian attire, which included a black sleeveless jacket with a hood, brown pants, brown shoes, and a white t-shirt. He found himself in Gotham City, the home of Robin, Batgirl, Batman, and the Dark Knight. However, it also harbored extremely dangerous supervillains like Scarecrow, the Joker, the Penguin, Two-Face, Poison Ivy, and Riddle. The city was rife with corruption and crime. Naruto thought, too much negativity in the city. He was wandering around in the dark, and it was essentially nighttime. But Naruto could see by looking around that the dark night truly needed all the assistance he could get here. He thought, "I'm not here to help." Then he saw movement in the darkness with his keen eyes. "Lady Luck seems to still like me." Wearing his armor and cloak, he vanished into the whirling whirlpool and then resurfaced in the shadowy alley. His blonde hair turned black as he pulled the Ryu mask out of his pouch and put it on his face. He retreated a few paces into the shadows and disappeared. In Gotham City, a shadowy figure leapt from building to building. Behind him, his cape flowed like black water. He seemed to fly silently from rooftop to rooftop, ensuring the safety of the city. He stopped and looked around him. Nothing. It had been quiet in Gotham for a while. He shrugged, but instinct urged him to move before he could leap to his car. In order to avoid shurikens that hit the ground where he had been a second earlier, he leapt back quickly. "You've got good reflex, Batman," a voice from the shadows said, laughing. Batman narrowed his eyes and looked in the direction of the voice. He said, "Who are you?" The figure recognized the man's face and stepped into the light, saying, "Ryu." "You know me?" asked Ryu. "Well, it's my honor." "I know you. You are a new hero from the Metropolis," Batman stated. "What are you doing here in the Gotham?" "First, I'm not a hero," Ryu declared. He assumed his fighting position. "Second, I'm here to test you." He then lunged at Batman and punched him in the chest, but Batman's battle reflexes prevented him from doing so. Ryu remarked, "You got some speed, Bat," before using his palm to block Batman's fist and then leaping back when Batman tried to strike him with a roundhouse kick. Ryu hurled some shuriken in his direction. Batman, however, swiftly sidestepped to avoid it before launching himself at Ryu. Ryu slid 1 foot forward, sweeping Batman's legs out from under him, then narrowed his eyes and pushed his foot back to catch the fist. Then he flipped over and flung him over his shoulder. Batman flipped in midair and landed with a soft thump. As Batman lunged forward again and flipped into a roundhouse kick that Ryu easily avoided, he thought, "He's good." Then, as Batman staggered back, Ryu swung out with a punch to his jaw. I should exercise a little more caution around him. He is not an amateur. They appeared to be evenly matched as they exchanged blows. My style is being imitated by him. Batman narrowed his eyes and thought, but if he's copying my moves. Batman put something on the boy's neck after blocking Ryu's attempt at a knee strike with his palm. Batman was knocked back by the young man's swift elbow to the face. With haste, the Dark Knight stood up and took out a small device from his utility. A red button was pressed by him. Ryu heard a high-pitched sound suddenly. Holding his hands to the side of his head, he shouted. He yelled, "W. What the hell?" Ryu was kneeling with his hands to the side of his head when Batman approached him. "It's my micro-sound amplifier device. I created it specifically for metahumans and other beings with an advanced hearing factor," Batman explained. "It was only my guess that you have some kind of super hearing." After saying, "Why you were good, but not everything you see is true," Ryu started to murder crows. "What?" Batman felt a cold hand suddenly press against his neck. From behind him, Ryu said, "Batman, you need to be more careful, but it's too late for now," while clutching an odd knife around his neck. He thrust his kunai into his neck and said, "Goodbye." Batman saw a white light and experienced a sharp pain in his neck that was obviously distinct from the rest of the pain. A flash. Its brightness is almost blinding. Then everything became dark. He had no idea what was happening and was unable to see anything. Then all of a sudden, things returned to normal. He discovered that he was back where it all began, and Ryu was nowhere to be seen. Was I dreaming? Batman pondered. Not in my opinion. He was still in pain from the altercation. He leapt to where the Batmobile waited in the darkness. The speaker asked in Alfred's British accent, "Any trouble tonight, sir?" Batman took his bat communicator in his hands. The Dark Knight whispered, "Yes," and leapt into his vehicle. He made his way to Wayne Manor. "I want you to find out everything about new hero Ryu." "Why?" "I encountered him today. He is quite dangerous." The Batcave, Batman's covert headquarters, was made up of a number of underground caverns beneath the home of his secret identity. At the heart of Bruce Cave was a supercomputer with specifications comparable to those of top national security organizations. It allowed for worldwide surveillance, connected to a vast information network, and stored a vast amount of data on Batman's enemies and allies. The current butler for the Wayne family, Alfred Pennyworth, was using the Batcomputer to type information about Ryu, the newest hero in Metropolis. Bruce, also known as Batman, said, "Alfred, did you find anything?" "Other than some common information about him, I got nothing," Alfred replied. "I even checked CCTV footage of Metropolis Street, but I got nothing. This guy is like Ghost." "So what did you find?" Alfred pressed a button on the Batcomputer as Ryu's picture, the same picture from the Daily Planet, and details about him showed up on the screen. "Only this," he said. "Dragon. Ryu actual name. Unknown age, approximately 18 to 19. Birthplace. Unknown species, presumably human. Black hair, dark blue eyes, relationships, unknown. Capabilities and strengths combatant with master hand.to, hand skills. Covert the ability to teleport takeoff superhuman strength, speed, agility, and reflexes through unidentified means. He is able to control and create the black lightning. It is unknown to what extent these abilities exist. The weapons are shurikens." "Alfred, add another one in that," Bruce recommended. "Illusion." A tiny metallic millipede emerged from the Batsuit and entered the Batcomputer, but neither Bruce nor Alfred noticed it. Naruto had a book on advanced medical technique in his hand as he leaned back on the couch in his living room. Merlin appeared in front of him as he was reading a book. "Master, it's done." Naruto said, "Good work, Merlin," and put the book away. A huge holographic map of Gotham City materialized in front of him as he said, "Now, show me. Where is Batman?" After pointing to the red dot, Merlin focused on that region. He pointed out the manor's hidden underground structure. "This is the Wayne Manor, the stately residence of billionaire Bruce Wayne. Using our spy bots, I scanned whole area and I found this," he said. Naruto grinned as he remarked, "Kakashi was right, a ninjas must look underneath the underneath." He was truly impressed by Bruce Wayne's acting ability, which wasn't easy. Who would have thought? Multi-billionaire, Playboy Bruce Wayne is the famous Dark Knight, Batman. But then again, Batman has some high-tech gadget and Bruce is the only person in Gotham who has enough money and technology to make something like that. Anyway, what is the condition of our hacker? When Merlin said, it has successfully connected to Batman's supercomputer. The Batcomputer is one of the most highly advanced computer hardware systems in this entire planet. It is protected by computer security. It is not easy to bypass for any Earthling computers, but not for me. I have already downloaded all data from it. Do you want to see it? Yes. Information about many of Gotham's supervillains and villainesses appeared on a holographic screen. Merlin, stop, says Naruto. He then gestured to the picture of a stunning woman with red hair. Show me all information on her. Ivy Poison, real name: Isley Pamela Lillian, also known as Ceres, Red, and Daphne Demeter. Human species: red hair that was once reddish, blonde. Green eyes. Gotham City is the base. Associated with Harley Quinn. Capabilities and strengths: toxic immunity, plant life control. Weapons: poisons and plants. She is portrayed as one of the most well-known eco-terrorists in the world. Her obsessions are environmentalism, botany, and plants. Her illegal actions, which are typically intended to preserve the environment, involve the use of toxins from plants and her own blood. Her frequent criminal partner and possibly her only human friend is fellow villain Harley Quinn. Interesting. Her power is similar to the wood release, said Naruto. Merlin, what is her latest location? No clue. Not even Batman knows about her location. Naruto said, send some our spy bots to find her, and then he got up and started to leave. Also keep tab on Batcomputer and Batman. Master, why do you want to know everything about Earth's villains and heroes? Replied Merlin. He had no idea why he was interested in it. Naruto came to a halt and turned to look at him. Know your enemy and know yourself and you can fight 100 battles without disaster, he stated. They are not my enemy now, but in the future. I am not Soraya. I can't predict the future, so it's better to be safe than sorry. A tiny flying disc stopped in front of Naruto as he was performing push-ups, his daily exercise, in the open training area. Merlin appeared in front of him as it opened. Master, spy bots have founded location of Poison Ivy. Naruto said, good job, Merlin, without glancing at him or pausing his push-ups. Keep tabs on her. After giving a nod, Merlin vanished from view. Robin and Batgirl didn't have a good day. When Batman learned of Poison Ivy's plan to use her new super growth formula to turn Gotham City into a green forest just hours ago, he went after her to stop her from becoming one of the most dangerous criminals, leaving them to deal with a simple Gotham National Bank robbery. Unfortunately for them, the thief ended up being Batman's second adversary. Bane, Robin said. Well, Bat has sent his two little sidekicks to fight, said Bane, a big man. He rushed in their direction. Batgirl and Robin both ducked under the attack in time. Bane kept attacking them while pumping more venom into himself. As Batgirl leapt to the right and hid behind a mailbox, residents were running away, leaving their cars behind that Bane was picking up and throwing at them. She drew a batarang from her belt and waited for Bane to reveal his back, where hoses hung from the back of his head and extended down his arms to his hands. He carried the venom supply on his back. While Robin tried to divert Bane's attention, she waited for an opportunity to cut off the venom supply. As Robin leapt onto Bane's head, ready to cut the hose, Bane roared in frustration at not being able to hit them. Kanta, Robin chuckled, what's the matter? A strong hand took hold of the boy. Bane threw Robin in the direction of the Batgirl who was hiding, but the elegant boy wonder rolled with the toss and stopped next to Barbara. He seems pretty angry, much more than usual, she said. Robin said, yeah, so I noticed, then grinned and gestured to a number of tiny metal pellets beneath Ben's feet. But I've done my job. Before erupting, the metal pellets started to beep. They covered Bane's legs and feet with a thick layer of ice, rendering him immobile. They watched as the blades sliced through the air as Robin took advantage of the situation and threw his weapon, Barbara following suit. Bane lifted his hands to beat them away, but they hit the hoses too quickly and did not shatter. Robin cursed his bad luck. Well, shit, Bane grinned as he balled his fists and slammed them onto the ice, saying, you have to do better than your old tricks. He was free once more, but it took a few beatings before it broke. He has better hoses and the pack is armored, Batgirl remarked. Bane grabbed a car on the road. He easily raised it over his head as his chubby fingers sunk into the metal doors. Robin and Batgirl rolled out of the way as they threw the car at them like a javelin. Robin swiftly retrieved a few more spheres from his belt and hurled them at Bane's feet, The monster was dazed and confused by the flashing lights that encased his feet as they struck the asphalt and erupted. Bane snarled and punched wildly, seeing only white. Batgirl, holding another batarang like a dagger, saw her opportunity and landed on Bane's back head. Bane's fingers found her cape as he reached up to grab her out of reflex. Oh. Batgirl let out a cry. Bane took hold of the cape and yanked her away. He held Batgirl in front of him while whipping his arm back. He felt a slight tap on his shoulder just as he was about to slam her into the asphalt. "Pardon me," a voice he didn't recognize said behind him. Bane dropped Batgirl, but as he did so, he took a hard hit to the ribs. The impact then sent him flying into another building, where he left a large hole in the wall, and he took another blow to the stomach. Robin helped her stand up and said, "Batgirl, are you alright?" Batgirl replied, "Yeah," before turning to face her savior. Batman had warned her about his face, and she recognized it instantly. "Ryu?" Ryu looked at Batman's two sidekicks and exclaimed, "Yes, one and only." While Batman's other sidekicks, Robin and the Boy Wonder, were dressed in a yellow cape, green boots, and a red bodysuit, Batgirl had red hair and a dark costume that resembled Batman's. Since it wouldn't help him blend in with anything other than a traffic light, Ryu wasn't sure why Batman had picked it for him. Ryu questioned the boy, "You realize your costume resembles a traffic light, don't you?" He wanted to be certain that the boy in front of him was aware of the reality of his outfit. When Robin heard his question, he almost fell on his face, which made Batgirl laugh. The Boy Wonder yelled at Ryu, "It doesn't appear to be a traffic light." "Really?" inquired Ryu. "Then why is it in red, green and yellow color?" Bane emerged from the hole before the Boy Wonder could object. Bane yelled, "Who hell are you?" Without waiting for a response, he moved toward Naruto with the goal of smashing his skull. To his astonishment, though, his fist went through Ryu as if he hadn't been there. Not a hair had been hurt on Ryu's head. After Bane's final blow went straight through him, Ryu grabbed his wrist. With ease, he threw Bane into a car and away. As the car curved around him, it didn't cause him much pain. Bane got to his feet. He had not been hurt at all. When he saw Ryu's red eyes, he abruptly stopped running in Naruto's direction. He collapsed to his knees, gripping his head in agony as he was caught in the strange red eyes of 1,000 crows. He screamed, "Leave me alone," and then collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Robin asked, "What happened to Bane?" 1 second, he was ready to punch him, and then the next second, he is on the ground, unconscious. Batgirl said, "I don't know, Robin, but just remember the Batman's warning. Stay away from that man," as she glanced at Ryu, who was staring at the unconscious Bane, before turning to face Robin. "He is an unknown actor. There are many things we don't know about, like his powers and purpose." Robin remembered Batman's warning about Ryu and nodded his head. From behind them came a voice that said, "You should thank me for saving your life." Before they turned to see who was speaking, Batman's two sidekicks leapt almost a mile in disbelief. Ryu was the one. Robin questioned, "How did you sneak up on us?" "For Batman's sidekicks, both of you have a very poor awareness of your surroundings," Ryu said. "I just walked here when both of you were busy in talking." The Boy Wonder thought, "I really started to hate this guy." Alfred said, "Batgirl," through the speaker in her mask. "Yes," Batgirl said as she turned to leave Ryu. "Batman need yours and Robin's help." She said, "We're on the way," and then she turned to face Robin. "Robin, let's go. Batman wants our help." After saying, "Then, let's go," Robin was prepared to assist Dark Knight. "If you ask me nicely, maybe I'll help you," Ryu replied. "We don't need your help," Robin said. "Oh, so you're going to face Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn alone," Ryu replied to them. Robin turned to him quickly and asked, "What? No one mentioned that she is with Ivy." Batgirl narrowed her eyes at him and said, "And how did you know about that?" Ryu grinned at them. After giving it some thought, Robin and Batgirl nodded and asked, "Do you want my help or not?" "Good," he said as he approached them and touched their shoulders. Just as Robin opened her mouth to speak, the surrounding landscape abruptly changed. He turned to see that they were now standing in front of an abandoned, ancient warehouse. From its roof and windows he could see dozens of tree branches. Batgirl looked at Ryu and said, "Teleportation? Maybe." Ryu grinned and turned to face Ivy's hiding place. "Looks like Ivy has decided to start her plan." "It's locked," revealed Robin. They were outside the back door of the warehouse, attempting to open it. From her utility belt, Batgirl took out a small explosive that they used to open doors. Ryu stopped her before she could blast the door. "Allow me," he ordered. He opened the door for others from inside after phasing through it. Batgirl entered first, then Robin. With its abundance of trees, plants, vines, dark, colored flowers, and even green grass, the interior of the warehouse resembled a verdant forest. Ryu said, she is really Mother Nature, as he and both of Batman's sidekicks entered Ivy's forest. If Ivy's super growth formula can do this, then I don't want to know what she will do with Gotham, Batgirl remarked, glancing around. As they went by, the trees appeared to be watching them. The boy wonder glanced to his left and right and asked, "Do you feel like the trees are watching us?" "Not really," replied Ryu. The words, "You're just getting paranoid, Robin," were spoken by Batgirl. All they did was take another step. Before they could react, they tightened their grip around their ankles and pulled them down, causing the roof to burst open with enormous vines. In order to prevent them from escaping, the vines seized their hands and firmly wrapped them together. They began to be overtaken by the darkness. They went completely unconscious. When Batgirl and Robin opened their eyes, they discovered that they were ensnared in thorny, large vines and facing two ferocious women. One of them had pale, nearly green skin, wore an all-green leopard, and had red hair. She appeared to have been taken straight out of a deck of playing cards. Robin remarked, "Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy." With a groan, Poison Ivy put her hand to her chin and smiled. Well, Batman, your little sidekicks had come here to rescue you, but sadly, they caught in my little trap." When Robin and Batgirl turned around, they saw that Batman was in the same state as them. "Batman," said Batgirl. "Now, tell me, little Bat and Bird, where is your third teammate?" Ivy responded. When Batman's two sidekicks searched the area, they couldn't find Ryu. They said, "I am here." They saw Ryu as they turned toward the voice. He was perched on a tree limb. "Yo," he said. He leapt to the ground from the tree and started to move in Ivy and Harley's direction. Batman asked, "Ryu?" before turning to face Batgirl and Robin. "You've brought Ryu with you. I did warn you to stay away from him." "Well, it was Batgirl's idea," Robin said, attempting to deflect Batman's ire. Batgirl yelled, "Robin," and gave him a fierce look. She then looked at Batman. "It was our idea. That time I thought it was a good idea." Ivy exclaimed, My, a new hero. "Hey, Red," Harley said, "let's play with him." "Sure." Ivy raised her arms and called forth vines, which encircled Ryu and covered his entire body. Not much challenge. "Boo!" exclaimed Harley, disappointed. Then they were shocked when Ryu phased through Ivy's prison. He held up a throwing star in his hand. He threw them at the vines that contained Batman and his sidekicks after sharpening them with wind chakra. To escape Ivy's trap, they chopped off all the vines. He grinned and remarked, "Don't worry, you won't be disappointed." Suddenly, a stunning black katana materialized in his grasp. "Now, let's dance." "We'll see," said Ivy. She spread her arms and sent a wave of vines crawling in Ryu's direction. Ryu quickly cut the air with his katana after raising it. He yelled, "100 wind blades," and sent them tearing through the vines. The ground shook abruptly, and foot-wide Venus flytraps appeared all over the place, resembling a field of bear traps that could all be set off at any time. In order to avoid traps, Ryu leapt up on a tree branch. He struck a tree branch with his sword. Before doing some hand seals, he took some shuriken. He yelled, "Fire release!" Phoenix Sageflower nailed crimson, and used one hand to launch a barrage of shuriken while simultaneously exhaling fire. Infused chakra onto them, sending them hurtling in the direction of Venus flytraps. The numerous targets were struck by the attack, which totally burned them. This smaller-scale attack didn't burn down an entire warehouse or Ivy's forest. It just damaged Venus flytraps. Batman and his friend watched from a safe distance as Ryu and Poison Ivy battled. Harley was lying next to Batman, unconscious, but they had taken care of him. Batman wanted to see what Ryu could do, so they weren't assisting him. Robin remarked, "He can control fire," as she saw Ryu sent shrunken in flames. "Yes," Batman remarked, squinting at Ryu. "And from an earlier display of his power, we could say that he also has some degree control over wind." Batgirl remarked, "Ivy looks angry," as she turned to face Poison Ivy. Ivy yelled, "You can't beat me, not here in my own garden," as vines sprung up all around her. "Then I will make my own," Ryu declared. The ground beneath her exploded as a result of his 3 hand seals. Wood release secret technique. Nativity of a world of trees. Trees began to spring up out of the ground all around them, grew quickly, and spread their branches out as they began to crush Ivy's garden, the roof of the warehouse, and the entire area. Batman exclaimed, "Let's go." After realizing that the building would soon collapse, he took Harley in his arms. They dashed for the door. The boy Wonder, panting heavily from exhaustion, dropped to his knees. His words, "That was close." Batgirl called out, "Batman," as she turned to face the warehouse. When Robin and Batman turned around, they saw that the forest had fully grown and was still expanding where the warehouse had been. Ivy was suddenly grasped by a wooden hand that emerged from the forest, followed by a huge creature. It was a humanoid creature with a dragon wrapped around its torso and an Oni-like face. Before it pinned Ivy to the ground, it let out a loud cry. Subsequently, it approached her with his second arm and opened it, revealing Ryu standing in its enormous palm. Ivy questioned in disbelief. How? For the first time, she witnessed someone other than herself exerting such strong control over the trees. How did you grow plants without any source? It's impossible to grow at any surface without source like seed or plant. That's my secret, said Ryu. As she fell into the genjutsu-induced slumber, he created an illusion and said, "Now, sleep." He then looked at Batman. "She is all yours." Ivy lay on the ground as the wooden golem rose to his feet once more. After placing a protective hand on Ryu, it phased into the earth. Batgirl remarked, "That guy is full of surprises." Naruto was making his way to his laboratory. He had a tiny tube with Poison Ivy's blood in it. He threw the tube up and caught it again. "I think this price is enough for saving the life of Gotham's heroes," he laughed. Almost 6 months had passed. Naruto has been on Earth for 6 months. During these 6 months, Naruto was able to gather a variety of information about the other heroes and villains on Earth, including their true identities, abilities, weaknesses, and many other details. He had even managed to obtain blood samples from aliens and metahumans who were hiding on Earth. Over the past 6 months, he has also made sporadic visits to Superman's blonde cousin. Perhaps because he had been attracted to her. Our favorite ninja was currently examining the holographic screens because he and MERLIN had discovered something occasionally fascinating. According to MERLIN, some satellite communications facilities worldwide have been transmitting odd encrypted signals into space. These signals were coded messages in an alien language that they had never seen or heard before. Additionally, there were a few incidents in the facilities that didn't appear to be accidents. Naruto tapped his chin and remarked, "If they are causing damage to the stations, it must be some sort of alien invasion. We don't have any information on their language. Even Green Lantern Corp's databases that I hacked have not any information on it. MERLIN knowledgeable. Maybe they are new alien species. Or very old alien species." MERLIN gave a nod. "There is also one thing, Master," he replied. "Batman is in Metropolis and he is working on the same case. Well then, time to visit Metropolis again." Kara Kent, popularly known as Supergirl, was perched atop the city's tallest skyscraper. Metropolis City was in her line of sight. From behind her, a recognizable Ryu voice asked, "So, what are you thinking?" He approached her and took a seat next to her. Supergirl looked in his direction. She said, "You have to stop sneaking on me." "Nah, it's fun," he acknowledged. She turned back to the city and asked, "So, why are you here?" "To visit Bat." She jerked her head in his direction. She said, "Batman is here." She had no idea how he was aware of this. Finding out about Batman was difficult because he was one of the most secretive people she knew. "Yes," he said with a nod, "and how did you know that?" "It's my secret," she said, "whatever," and turned to face the city. "So, what are you thinking earlier?" "Well, I was thinking about my life. And, I feel like I'm missing something in life." "Maybe, you're missing technology." "Huh?" she asked, observing him to see how he arrived at that conclusion. I know you came from an advanced civilization. Their technology was more advanced than Earth," said the man. "Putting you in Earth is like putting someone from modern age to Stone Age. You miss the technology." Her smile said, "Maybe, you thought about all of this?" "Yes," he replied, then raised his gaze to the sky. "You know the technology of my home is behind than Earth." "Really?" she questioned incredulously. She was aware that he possessed advanced technology? "Yes, we don't even have vehicles," he pointed out to her. "I've learned everything about technology in space. But even though we are not advanced in technology, there is one department, we can suppress even most of civilization." He paused. "Our medical knowledge. We can regrow limbs, cure deadly poison and many more. There are many possibilities in our medical techniques." They were silent for several minutes. Supergirl was about to ask a question when she heard police sirens. The sounds of bank sirens were also audible to their keen ears. Ryu questioned Supergirl, "Is the bank robbery a common occurrence in Metropolis?" Maybe, the mayor should declare that banks aren't the safest place to store the money. Supergirl sighed, unsure of how to respond to his inquiry because this week had seen 2 bank robberies. It was nighttime. Dark Knight was spying on a satellite communications facility run by Wayne Tech on the outskirts of Metropolis. Through his binoculars, he observed 3 dubious facility employees bidding their colleagues farewell in a friendly manner. Their personalities completely changed after their co-workers left. After exchanging a few words in the strange alien tongue, they turned around and headed for the building's summit. What are they doing? Batman asked himself as he peered through his binoculars at his employers. He saw them tampering with the communication devices and narrowed his eyes. He went to stop them after drawing his grappling hook. He would have noticed a tiny metallic bee observing him from a distance if he had truly paid attention to his surroundings. Naruto remarked, "This is interesting." He was watching Batman on a holographic screen in the middle of the maze of infinity. Before he could set off the satellite, Batman seized one of the scientists. He then tries to subdue 3 of them, but they all fight back with incredible strength and speed. When the other 2 cornered him, it was useless, but he was still able to corner one of them on top of the roof dish. The phrase, "End of the Dark Knight," according to Merlin. "Not really," Naruto remarked, gesturing to the screen to indicate that Superman had come to halt them. Every employer recoiled when they saw Superman. Superman moved forward, but before he could deal them any damage, he painfully grabbed his head and passed out. When Merlin said, "Well, that was unexpected," she was deadpan. 3 mysterious employers took advantage of this circumstance and set off the satellite, but Batman was able to turn Superman around and use his grappling hook to avoid the explosion before he skidded to a halt on the ground. He hurried to his feet and turned to see that the employers' bodies were still alive despite being twisted into positions that should have killed any normal person. The words, "disgusting," Merlin after shaking his head, Naruto got to his feet. He declared, "It's time for alien hunt," while observing 3 extraterrestrials running into the woods. The 3 aliens, who had assumed the identities of the communications facility employees, were strolling through the forest in peace when all of a sudden a fog appeared in front of them, which seemed to be growing thicker as they went. The 2 feet in front of them were hardly visible. Walking forward for a few minutes made it too thick. Not even their faces were visible to them. Suddenly, behind an alien who had assumed the appearance of a Chinese employer, Ryu slowly rose from the ground. Placing his hand on his shoulder, he swallowed him into the maze of infinity without warning the other 2. Then he dropped back to the floor. "So this is the true form of these aliens," Naruto remarked, glancing at the glass tank that held a repulsive white-skinned alien and was filled with a murky, green liquid. He was in a state of hibernation, but he was alive. "Merlin, what is the result?" "His species is some kind of alien parasite. From initial scan, he may have some kind of shape-changing ability," said Merlin. "I can say only this thing at this moment." It's okay," Naruto replied. "Show me all data." As he started to analyze all of the data, holographic screens appeared in front of him, displaying all of the information about white aliens. After completing his breakfast and morning routing exercise, Naruto was making his way to the underground base via a concealed elevator behind a wall. When the elevator arrived at the base, he got out. Then he made his way to the subterranean laboratory where he had put the white alien into hibernation. "What is the result?" Naruto inquired, glancing at the glass tank that held the white alien and the green liquid. Beside him, Merlin appeared. He displayed data on a holographic screen and stated, "His species are definitely shapes. Shifter. I've also found this strange brainwave." Naruto examined the data while tapping his chin. "They have telepathic powers." Merlin gave a nod. "But they haven't born with it. They have adapted it or developed it in their later years," he stated. "Also, their bodies have no protection against the sun's ultraviolet radiation." "That's explain it, why they are more active in the night," said Naruto. "Good job. Secure his body for further experiment." With a nod, Merlin said, "Master, perhaps you will find this interesting." A blonde woman reporter began to speak as another holographic screen appeared in front of Naruto, displaying breaking news. "The World Assembly has decided to hold a meeting on the subject because it cannot ignore the public's protests for the disarmament of all WMDs. Don't move. It will begin shortly. Remain in front of your television. Our channel will broadcast it globally." Naruto settled down in the chair comfortably. He put one leg over the other and crossed his arms. He put his chin on his fists and remarked, "This is interesting." The meeting began 30 minutes later. Jay, one of the US speaking on behalf of the demonstrators, the senator started out by outlining the negative aspects of possessing such dangerous weapons. Although the Japanese government backed him, many military personnel strongly disagreed and opposed the plan. They maintained that their only option for defending themselves against a global threat was nuclear weapons. Carter then suggested that Superman be regarded as Earth's guardian against any danger to humanity. He maintained that Superman was more dependable and capable of dealing with any threat to Earth because he had repeatedly shown himself to be able to defeat supervillains, criminals armed with advanced weapons, and when Darkseid first attacked Earth, the military was unable to stop him, but Superman was able to do so. When Naruto noticed that Superman agreed with that notion on another screen, he arched his brows. "He is weakening the Earth defense by agreeing this stupid plan," Naruto said, shaking his head. Then a second screen with another superhero Flash appeared next to both screens. He wore a full-body spandex suit that was red. A reporter was interviewing him. "I'm the fastest man alive, and even I can't be in 5 places at once." "I'm agree with him," Naruto said, then he squinted at Carter on the first screen. "Merlin, collect all information on J. Allen Carter." The World Assembly reached a consensus on the comprehensive nuclear disarmament plan almost 3 months ago. Superman had been disarming the world's nuclear weapons during those 3 months, and he had disposed of almost all of them. When Ryu said, "So, this is Carter's house," he was watching the house, which was defended by 4 armed men, from a crouch on a thick branch quite high up the tree. He was wearing tight black gloves and a black boot, along with a black t-shirt and black pants with a red line on the sides. His right thigh was strapped with a ninja pouch. Without taking his from Carter's house, he asked his partner, "What do you think about it?" Supergirl was his partner. She dressed similarly to Ryu, with a few minor exceptions. She wore pants, dark gloves with a thin cuff, and a black t-shirt that exposed her midriff. Hovering in midair, she said, "Remind me again, why am I here?" Then Ryu turned to face her and said, "You are here to help me because it's my price for helping you. People like me also know there are many things in the life you can't do alone. Unlike some people I know." "Are you referring to my cousin?" Supergirl landed down in front of Ryu, narrowing her eyes. Ryu chose to give a safe response while grinning. "Maybe." Supergirl gave a headshake. "There are 2 things I want to ask you," she replied. "Why am I wearing this? And why are we outside of Senator Carter's house?" Ryu got to his feet and approached her. "Because this outfit is a high-tech and more stealthy than your so-called super suit," he replied. "As for your second question, I think Senator Carter is fake." She folded her arm and said, "Oh, really? She didn't think he was real. How are you so sure about it?" Ryu turned to face the house and gestured to one of the guards. "Look closely at the gun in guard's hand," said the officer. Supergirl pivoted to gaze at the firearm held by the guard. The guard was carrying an odd white gun that didn't resemble any human-made weapon, but she hadn't noticed this before. Ryu responded, "Do you really think those are human weapons?" Supergirl asked, "You mean they are working with aliens?" "No. I mean they are shape-shifter aliens. So, what now? Turn back." "Huh?" Ryu followed her. He shoved her blonde hair aside so he could see her neck. "Hey, what are you doing?" Supergirl said. Ryu took a small rounded device from his pouch and placed it on her, saying, "I'm shielding your mind from them because their species is not only a shapes-shifter but also a telepath. They can read your mind." A tiny circular holographic screen the size of his palm emerged from the device when he touched it, revealing numerous Fuinjutsu seals. He picked up a specific seal after sliding some others. It grew until the entire screen was covered. He said, "Fuin," as he put his hand on the screen and sent some chakra into it. A flash of light appeared where the device was placed on Supergirl's neck. He took the device out when it went down. Superman's cousin's neck had a tiny dot, but if you looked closely, you could see the seal there. "It's done," he declared, returning the gadget to his pouch. After asking, "What you did?" Supergirl turned to face him and gazed into his eyes, curious. "I've put a Fuinjutsu seal on you," Ryu commented on her perplexed expression. "They are similar to magical runes. They will prevent anyone from entering your mind." "Is it permanent?" "Well, I can remove it later if you want." Supergirl gave an understanding nod. A rectangular chip was thrown in front of them by Ryu. A 3-dimensional image of Carter's home was projected when it opened. "This is Carter's home," he declared as he began to quickly move the hologram, displaying and enlarging various areas of the house. "See these white dots, they're guards." Supergirl brought up an image of a red dot and asked, "And this red dot?" Ryu proclaimed, "This is fake Carter, do you understand? Supergirl looked at the map and nodded. Yeah, she said. Ryu declared, good. We're going inside, and put the holographic map back in his pouch. Then he touched Supergirl's shoulder, and they vanished. They resurfaced outside the room containing fake Carter. Supergirl peered through the walls to see what was inside using her X-ray vision. One of them is Carter, and they are 4, she said. Ryu took a small cylindrical object in his hand and nodded. He slid the object into the room, phasing his hand through the door. 3, 2, 1. He performed the count. Inside, Supergirl's super hearing detected a tiny boom. What was that? A small paralyzing gas. It will shut them down for 2 hours, Ryu replied. They walked through the door together after he took Supergirl's hand. From the inside, the room appeared to be in perfect condition. The only people lying on the floor were fake Carter and his friends. They had paralyzed bodies. In particular, they were all in a death-like state. Ryu said, Supergirl, watch the guards. He placed a tiny circular device on fake Carter's forehead while kneeling next to him. Then he activated the device on Carter's head by pressing a button on a tiny holographic pad in his hand. What are you doing? Asked Supergirl. Ryu replied, taking information from his head, without averting his gaze from the pad. Is it safe? Ryu answered, well, I've never tested it before, so I don't know. If something goes wrong with it, he said calmly, as if he didn't care, 2 things will happen. His brain would either fry out from inside or completely shut down for forever. It doesn't matter to him. Supergirl perspired. She questioned, is he really a fake? Ryu remained silent. As Carter transformed into a white alien, he pushed a button on the pad. This has answered your question. Supergirl turned around and used her X-ray vision to see 2 guards outside the door after her advanced hearing picked up a sudden noise. The guards entered after opening the door. There was nobody in the room. After speaking in their alien tongue, they began to look around the room when Supergirl slowly descended from the ceiling behind them. Their heads bowed strangely before she slammed them into one another and they collapsed to the ground, unconscious. She said, could you please hurry up? As he and the other aliens came into view, Ryu canceled the genjutsu. He said, give me a few seconds, and pushed a few buttons on the pad. He put both gadgets back in his pouch and said, it's done. Let's go. He took Supergirl's hand once more and teleported them both out of the house. Supergirl and Ryu both seemed to be far from the house. A vast, empty desert stretched out in front of them as they stood atop a cliff. Ryu was asked by Supergirl, so what did you find? Ryu took his holographic pad out. According to Carter, who viewed some of his memories, these aliens had invaded Mars 1,000 years ago, wiping out all Mars people, and absorbing their telepathic and shape-changing abilities. In conclusion, Supergirl said, so, they have come from Mars. Yes, you could say that, was Ryu's response. He looked again into Carter's memory. Form fake Carter's memory. During the Mars mission, real Carter inadvertently released these aliens. So what happened to him? Ryu remarked, he is dead, killed in the process. As for his doppelganger, his mission is tricking humans into disarming their most powerful weapons and he has succeeded in it. He used my cousin for that, Supergirl uttered, her fist clenched in rage. Yes, Ryu replied, touching the pad screen to obtain additional details. Another thing is that there is a lone survivor of Martian civilization, who had come to Earth to warn about them, is captured by them. Supergirl inquired, where is he? We'll also have to inform this to Superman. It's too late for that, told Ryu. A huge holographic screen appeared in front of them, displaying a meteor entering Earth's atmosphere, and he slid the screen on the pad. The invasion has already started. It was just another typical night in Metropolis. People were simply going about their daily lives, shopping, strolling, and many other routine activities. That is, until a few people noticed that the sky was getting brighter. People watched in amazement as a meteor descended toward them. When the meteor fell from the sky and struck the center of the city, the people scurried. Before the police and fire department arrived to calm things down, a few people hastily grabbed their cell phones and took some pictures. As they began to remove every civilian from the area, a leg unexpectedly appeared from a meteor's side. Superman rescued them by preventing 2 police officers from being crushed by a leg before it could crush the police cars and the officers inside that vehicle. Soon after, the leg was followed by the rest of the body and 2 more legs. The creature that had risen from the meteor was as tall as a building and had a tripod shape. It was white with patches of red on its body. A police car was then destroyed by a laser fired by the tripod. Superman flew directly at the tripod but was struck by a laser blast and sent sprawling. Officers started shooting at the tripod, but the bullets simply bounced off it. More lasers were fired by the tripod. While Jimmy took some pictures for Lois, she was far away taking notes for her new news article in Notepad. Jimmy remarked, "Lois, this idea is crazy," as he photographed the extraterrestrial car. "Just take the pictures, Jimmy." "Stop talking," said Lois. "When you need Clark, where the devil is he?" When she needed the man, he wasn't always there. He hasn't really gone to save the world or anything. Jimmy yelled, "Shit," as he noticed a laser beam directly in their direction. But Ryu and Supergirl both arrived in time to save them. As the beam struck the building behind them, seriously damaging it, where they had been only a second before, they seized both reporters and hoisted them into the air. Supergirl and Ryu floated down slowly, both reporters in their arms, until their feet touched the ground. "You need to be more careful, Lois," Supergirl said. "The word, Supergirl," said Lois. Her new attire prevented her from recognizing her. "Well, nice outfit. You looks better in this than your old one." Jimmy said, "Thanks, man," to Ryu. "You are welcome," Ryu said. They all looked up when they heard a jet and saw 2 missiles being launched at the tripod by a bat-shaped jet. It consumed a fiery explosion as it struck the target. Upon clearing the smoke, it became clear that the attacks had no impact. Jimmy remarked, "What the? It must have cost a lot of money," upon spotting Batjet. "Is he a billionaire, or something?" While Supergirl and Lois were thinking the same thing, knowing that Batman was actually multi-billionaire Bruce Wayne, Ryu thought, "You have no idea." The tripod was punched into a bridge by Superman as he flew up. He then started to tear through its shell, but before he could do much damage, he was struck by another laser blast and launched into a building. As the tripod rose again, the Batjet fired more missiles at it. Once more, the missiles had no impact. 2 more tripods suddenly appeared from the meteor. Supergirl yelled, "Let's go," as she took off for the extraterrestrial cars. Ryu said, "Miss Lane, don't do anything reckless," and then he took off and trailed Supergirl. Jimmy said, "You heard him, right?" to Lois. "Whatever," said Lois, with her arm folded. When one of the extraterrestrial vehicles noticed Supergirl approaching, it fired a laser at her. Supergirl was about to block the laser blast by crossing her hands in front of her face when her new suit suddenly acted, covering her entire body, and a helmet slid down over her face. The suit absorbed the impact and blocked the blast with ease. "Cool," Supergirl said, directing blast at another alien machine with a movement of her arm. The tripod's shell developed a crack, but that was the only damage caused by the attack. An image of the robot's schematic appeared on a screen that appeared in front of Supergirl's face. It revealed a weak spot in one of the tripod's shells, a crack created by the earlier blast. Raising her fist, Supergirl flew in the direction of the robot and punched it in its weak spot, rupturing its shell. As if it could read her thoughts, the helmet covering her face returned to its place in the suit. Then she blasted off its internal circuits using her heat vision. The tripod exploded as a result of her strategy. Ryu flew toward the second one, phasing through the laser blast. He called forth chakra chains and infused them with fire from Amaterasu. They were twisted around its legs by him. The tripod fell to the ground, and Amaterasu effortlessly melted all 3 legs. He melted the remaining body by encircling it with Amaterasu. Infused chakra chains to complete it. "Can I keep this suit? It's cool," Supergirl said to Ryu while she was floating next to him. Ryu faced her, telling her, "It's just a prototype. If you want, I can make a real suit for you." "Really?" she inquired her. "Yeah," was his response. He hit the ground in front of the alien machine that had fallen, but after this invention. Supergirl gave a nod. Suddenly, something moves quickly enough to cause the ground to tremble above it. When they looked up, they saw Superman hurrying off, Batjet right behind him. Supergirl questioned, "Where are they going?" Says Ryu, "Let's find out." "We can't," stated Supergirl. She gestured toward the final extraterrestrial car. "There is still one left." After creating 3 hand seals, Ryu exclaimed, "Wood release. Wood clone technique." A tiny wooden post emerged from the ground next to him. Then it transformed into a human, and in less than a minute, a flawless replica of himself was standing next to him. He gave his wood clone the order, "Go handle it." After giving a nod, the clone took off in the direction of the final tripod. When Supergirl saw him creating a clone of himself, her mouth fell to the floor. Her words, "You can make a clone of yourself." "Yeah," Ryu replied. "Just how many abilities you have?" Ryu grinned. "I am a man of many skills." Before they took off and headed in the same direction as Superman and Batjet, Supergirl shook her head at his response. Supergirl and Ryu followed Superman and Badjet until they arrived at a partially demolished military facility. A few feet from a door, they dropped to the ground in front of a hole that had been smashed into the wall. Through the hole, they flew into the building. They arrived in an alien pod filled with people. Unable to complete the question, Supergirl trailed off. Are they? Nevertheless, Ryu responded. He said, they're in a state of suspended animation, and then he heard metal hitting something. As they left the room, Superman was pounding on a reinforced steel door in an attempt to open it, and Batman was attempting to stop him. Batman responded, destroying government property isn't your style. What's going on? Your cousin appears to have located the final Martian, Ryu informed Supergirl. Supergirl questioned, you mean he is here? Supergirl followed Ryu as he nodded and floated in the direction of both superheroes. Slowly, his feet touched the ground. Well, Batman, you need to hear him before coming to any conclusion, he said. The two superheroes gave them a look. Ryu, said Batman. Supergirl. Superman corrected himself in a hurry. Why are you wearing this outfit? Never mind. Turning back to the door, he grabbed it and tossed it aside, exposing a room filled with computer screens that seemed to be tracking a person's vital signs. The door at the other end of the room was forced open, and Superman entered a room with a green-skinned alien and more computers. Batman questioned, what is it? Mankind's only hope. He is from Mars. The last Martian. Ryu, Supergirl, and Superman all responded at the same moment. Batman let out a sigh. All right, so am I the only one who doesn't know anything about him? The alien was freed from its restraints when Superman flipped a switch. He's been trying to reach out to me, but that stasis field interfered. When his message finally broke through it, I came to rescue him, he said. Why is he here? Asked Batman. The Martian said, the invasion, telepathically. I came to warn you, but I was captured and imprisoned. They wouldn't listen. Martian threw out of his head as Ryu's eyes flashed red. He cautioned, never attempt to enter my mind. Martian nodded before changing into a more human-looking outfit that included a blue high-collared cape, blue boots, a red belt with a yellow belt buckle, and two red straps that formed a X across his chest. I am John Johns, he said, introducing himself verbally and holding out his hand. As they left the building, Superman said, we'll have to contact the Joint Chiefs, but the lights blinded them. The leader yelled, stop right there, Superman. You're trespassing on government property. Our orders are to keep that freak here, as the army was positioned to fire. The Man of Steel remarked, wait, I'll vouch for him. You must let us go. A huge fireball of white flames erupted from Ryu's mouth and raced in the direction of the army. Most of the soldiers were consumed by the fire. What are you doing? Yelled Superman. The remaining soldiers blasted him into a tank with a laser beam just as he was about to save them. The army was transformed into black and white aliens with 3 red dots running vertically down their faces. Supergirl yelled, Superman. When Ryu told her, they're fake, he took hold of her hands and proceeded to attack them. To escape the explosions, the final Martian and the Dark Knight hid behind a jeep. A group of aliens were eliminated when Batman drew an explosive batarang and threw it at them. An extraterrestrial approached Batman from behind and aimed a laser at him. Jean shouted, watch out, as he passed the Dark Knight. He deflected the laser by creating an energy shield. Batman swiftly produced a batarang and hurled it at the extraterrestrial, rendering it unconscious. He asked Jean, who looked hurt, are you all right? Water release. Water dome jutsu. Ryu muttered as he went through a few hand seals. He collected a lot of water from the atmosphere and surrounded himself and other superheroes with a huge water dome that pushed back most aliens and their attacks. Supergirl, take other away from here, said the man. With a nod, Supergirl took off for other people. She witnessed Superman shield Batman and John from the remaining aliens inside the dome by using a tank. Superman, Ryu will handle this from here, she replied. Superman threw the tank at white-skinned aliens after nodding. He looked at Batman. Get Jean to safety. I and Supergirl will cover you, he stated. Batman carried Jean to the Badjet and put him in the cockpit with Supergirl's assistance. A squadron of alien aircraft soon followed them after Ryu gave them a way out of the dome. Another set of hand seals was created by Ryu. When he exclaimed, water release, water dragon jutsu, the water dome transformed into a massive Chinese dragon. Before the whole army of white-skinned aliens was crushed by the high-pressure water, it roared and peered at the aliens. Before being struck by lasers, both super cousins flew in a few planes. Superman crashed into the side of a mountain, and Supergirl fell to the ground, before one of the aircraft blew off one of its wings and sent the plane and its occupants into a death spin. Badjet destroyed another aircraft with his missile. Luckily, a green energy field caught the downed aircraft. It was John Stewart as Green Lantern, dressed in the power ring and uniform of Green Lantern Corp. Hawkgirl, a woman with wings, entered the fray and began using her mace to beat the combatants. She wore a black mask, gray boots, and a yellow one-piece with a red belt. Jean, Supergirl, and Superman also participated in the aerial conflict. After safely abandoning Badjet on a cliff, Green Lantern also arrived to assist them. Hawkgirl landed on a cliff after being blasted out of the air. In order to protect herself, a dark-haired woman in a tiara reflected laser blasts back at the alien aircraft. Green Lantern questioned Superman, "Who are the rookie in the tiara?" "I'm not sure," Superman said, tossing one of the extraterrestrial planes against a cliff. The Badget's missing wing was carried by a red blur that ran up at the end of the battle. The blur halted in front of Batman and said, "Hey Bats, I think you dropped this." The Flash was the one. Supergirl and the dark-haired woman in the tiara landed on the ground in front of them. When Flash saw the black-haired beauty, he exclaimed, "Whoa, where have you been all my life?" "The Mischira," she said, not paying attention to his flirtatious attempts. Hawkgirl remarked, "The home of Amazons. I always thought it was merely a legend, since she was already there with the Green Lantern." The woman answered, "I promise you, it's as real as the ground on which we stand. I am Diana, Princess of the Amazons." When Flash said, "Pinch me, I must be dreaming," Supergirl gave him a slap across the stomach. "Ow. The island of the Mischira is protected by the gods, but I could not idly stand by while the rest of the world was in danger," said Diana. Superman was assisting Batman while they were occupied with conversation. He was fixing Batman's ride, welding the wing back into place with his heat vision. He joined others after repairing Badjet. Superman said, "Thanks for coming here," to Diana. The Martian took a step, telling him, "I telepathically summoned them." "Okay, look, I'm usually pretty quick on the uptake, but would someone please tell me just what the heck is going on here?" Flash responded. "I will," said Jean, "but I am waiting for the last person to show up." "Who?" Flash asked. "Me," Ryu uttered as he ascended like a specter. "You!" exclaimed the Green Lantern, who recognized him. He aimed a luminous green energy beam at Ryu. Ryu used his left hand to easily catch the beam, which was still attached to the Green Lantern's ring. A black matter began converting the green energy from green to black before the Green Lantern could detect it. It reached for the power ring in less than a second after the green hue of the ring and Green Lantern's attire faded. John was immobilized after becoming encased in a black energy rope up to his neck. He was in the air several feet up. When Ryu said, "It's nice to see you again, John," he let the Green Lantern fall to the ground. A couple of extraterrestrial planes appeared out of nowhere. They targeted them with a laser blast. Ryu used black hands made of the energy from a corrupted Green Lantern that was still in his hand to seize each aircraft before they could shoot them at them. He clenched his fist, and all aircraft were destroyed as the energy hands followed suit. With that, the Green Lantern rose to his feet. The green color of his outfit and ring had returned. He questioned Ryu, "What are you doing here? Because you'll never work without getting something in return." "Oh, really?" John gave him a narrowed look. "Yes, you are Ryu, the mercenary whose motto is, 'Never work for free,'" he replied. Hawkgirl said, "You are Ryu, the destroyer?" In the room, she heard a lot about him. In the space, Ryu was essentially a household name. He went by a lot of nicknames. He was the mercenary with no mission failures. He was the destroyer who had annihilated his numerous rivals. He was also known as the thief, a man who enjoyed stealing pricey items and cutting-edge technology. She went on to say, "You're much younger than I expected." Ryu grinned and said, "I know, but I've more experience than you have in your life." With her arms crossed, she replied, "Yeah, right." Another question from Green Lantern was, "Why are you here, Ryu?" "I'm not bound to tell you everything, John," Ryu replied. "But for your information, I didn't want to waste this chance to know more about this unknown alien species." The Green Lantern knew Ryu enjoyed gathering information on everything, so he reasoned that his desire to learn had brought him here. Superman interpreted, "We should concentrate on the invaders for the time being. We can discuss this later." "Very well," reported Green Lantern. "I'm dropping this subjective for now." "Jean," said Superman. The final Martian stepped forward. He looked at Ryu and remarked, "I want to show something telepathically." Ryu allowed him to enter his head and replied, "Very well." Jean's eyes were bright as he turned to face the other heroes. "We first encountered them 1,000 of your Earth years ago," he continued. All of a sudden they were on Mars, but it wasn't a desolate planet, it resembled a city. Jean remarked, "It was a golden age, while Martians went about their daily lives as usual. Our Martian civilization was at the height of its peace and prosperity." A male and a female Martian were gleefully gazing out over the city from the top of a balcony. Ryu recognized Jean as the male Martian. And then, they arrived. A dozen fiery meteors sped toward Mars, wreaking havoc where they touched down. From where they came from, no one knew, Jean added, but they were determined to make our planet their own. In the picture, everything was destroyed by enormous white monsters that were shooting throughout the city. One monster was destroyed when a Martian threw a grenade at it. We Martians were a peaceful race, and the taking of any life was abhorrent to us. But we quickly learned the ways of war. Once more, the image changed to depict captured Martians being herded by white aliens who were shooting at them and striking them with guns. For centuries, the battle raged on. Every trace of our once great civilization was obliterated. We fought valiantly, but the invaders were parasites who fed our physical energy. They even absorbed our shape-shifting abilities. Another image showed Martians trapped in red eggs as their shape-shifting abilities were absorbed by the aliens. Finally, a small group of Martian survivors planned one final, desperate attack. They saw a group of mask-wearing Martians with guns charging into the alien base as the image changed. A few of them were killed by the group, but they were soon outnumbered. There was only one Martian left. After hiding behind a wall, the final Martian produced a gadget, turned it on, and hurled it at the approaching invaders. Inside their underground stronghold, we unleashed a powerful nerve gas that paralyzed them. The aliens were frozen like statues, and the Martian passed them when the smoke cleared. It turned out to be Jean when the Martian took off his mask. Then he turned to see that his brothers and sisters had also died. The attack was successful, but the cost was dear. I was the only survivor, the last of my kind. Another image shift occurred, and they saw Jean seal the invasion by shutting the stronghold's entrance. Jean remarked, "I sealed up their citadel to keep them in a constant state of suspended animation," as the picture abruptly vanished and everyone returned to Earth. "For years, I stood guard over them. But while I was in a hibernation cycle, astronauts from Earth unsealed the stronghold and accidentally revived the invaders." "Hang on," Flash said, putting up his hands. "Those astronauts never said a word about finding life on Mars." The Green Lantern gave a snort. Some pencil pusher in Washington probably decided it should be classified information. Ryu said, "Or there is a mole in the government," and everyone turned to stare at him. "Who?" Flash inquired, hoping he might know something about it. The answer was Senator Carter, Supergirl said. "The real Senator Carter never returned from Mars. He is dead," Ryu said. "The one, who was on Earth, is his doppelganger. His mission was disarming nuclear weapons to strip away any means of defenses, leaving Earth open to attack. And he used me," stated Superman. "When he realized that he had made Earth helpless, he became angry with himself. They also sabotaged the Deep Space Monitoring Network," Batman stated, "so we couldn't detect their activities." Green Lantern's green eyes glowed as he exclaimed, "We got to stop them before it's too late." "It might already be too late," Jean remarked, waiting for something while glancing at the horizon. Ryu's wood clone stood atop the remnants of the final alien machine in the center of Metropolis City. The rock from which they had come began to tremble before he could get rid of himself. He saw black tentacles emerge as the rock crumbled away. Then the black tentacles began to blend into a gigantic skyscraper. At that point, the skyscraper began to function like a pump, spewing black smoke into the air and obstructing the sky. His own words, "They're blocking the sun," were followed by a dispelling. Diana heard thunder and cried out, "What was that?" Jean said, "It has begun," as he peered at the ominous storm clouds in the distance. With wide eyes, everyone except Ryu gazed at the clouds. Supergirl broke the silence with, "That is one freaky storm," the words. Hawkgirl glanced at Jean and asked, "What are they doing?" Ryu's statement, "They're blocking the sunlight," attracted everyone's attention. "They're similar to vampires. Sunlight is harmful to them. You could say they're creatures of darkness." Jean gave a head nod. Batman squinted at Ryu and said, "How do you know this?" Ryu replied, "I've captured one of them." Then Flash approached Jean. "Can't you make another batch of that nerve gas?" asked he. Jean gave a headshake. "Unfortunately, I cannot. The gas can only be made from a rare Martian plant. I brought a sample with me, but it was destroyed when I was captured. It wouldn't have been the best way anyway. There wouldn't have been enough time to test the effects of the gas on the native plant and animal life, said Supergirl. Flash said, Thena, what's plan B? Diana proposed, we have to take out those factories. Exactly, said Supergirl. With her mace raised, Hawkgirl remarked, I like this plan. Ryu said, and here I thought boys like to destroy things, which made Flash laugh. Green Lantern looked at Diana and then at Supergirl, saying, this is no job for amateur like you, or kid. We Amazons are warriors born, Diana declared, taking a stern look at Green Lantern. Want to test me? Supergirl even appeared prepared to give Green Lantern a reality check. Ryu made the decision to use this opportunity to make Green Lantern look bad. John, you said the same thing to me when we first met, he replied. Green Lantern swiveled in his direction. Because that time you were 15, he said, giving Ryu a sidelong glance. Ryu asked, and your point is? Age doesn't matter. It's just a number, he laughed, and gender doesn't decide someone's skills. As a result, Ryu received positive reviews from all women, while Green Lantern received negative reviews. Superman said, let's not fight among ourselves, as he approached them and touched Green Lantern's shoulder. John, we're going to need all the help we can get. Fine, sighed Green Lantern. Then he walked in the middle of the group and said, I'm sorry. His expression was calculated. Tactically, we'll have multiple objectives, so we'll need to split into teams. Flash exclaimed, dibs on the Amazon. As he unexpectedly materialized next to the Princess of Amazon, his arm draped over her shoulder. She gave him a disbelieving glance. Ryu glanced at the final Martian and shook his head. He inquired, where did they capture you? As they flew over a desert that was deserted, Supergirl asked Ryu, where are we going? Each of the 4 groups of heroes destroyed a factory. Superman and Hawkgirl were the first group to visit Metropolis. The second group was Flash and Green Lantern. They went to Malaysia somewhere. Egypt was awarded to Jean, Diana, and Batman, the third group. Supergirl and Ryu were the final group. They were flying over a desert that was deserted, but their destination was Tokyo. She went on, Tokyo is that direction, gesturing with her thumb in the other direction. I know, Ryu replied. He was holding his holographic pad. Then why are we heading towards opposite direction? We are heading towards Jean's ship. Why? To prepare the plan C if plan B fails. Like an abruptly active volcano that had lain dormant, they spewed sand and dust into the air as they traveled through the atmosphere at great speeds. They went by a number of sand dunes. They halted as they approached the signal. Ryu declared, we are here, as his holographic pad received the signal from Jean's ship. The ship was buried in the sand when Supergirl looked around using her X-ray vision. It is here, she said, indicating the specific location. Ryu waved his free hand and the sand began to move as he nodded. A minute later, a Martian ship appeared. Due to damage caused by white-skinned aliens, the ship didn't appear to be a spaceship but rather a junk. They touched down before it. Supergirl said, okay, and turned to face Ryu. What now? Use your X-ray vision and try to find the Martian plant that Jean had brought with him, Ryu replied. But Jean said it was destroyed when he was captured. I know that, but a very small part of that plant will be enough for me, even if it's dead. Supergirl gave a nod. She peered inside the spaceship with her X-ray vision. She looked for a minute and finally found it. She said, I found it, as she made her way to the ship. She used a big hole on the ship to get into the cockpit. The condition of the cockpit was poor. Every control had melted. Broken items were strewn about, hanging everywhere, and pilot seats had been ripped from the deck. Supergirl snatched up one seat and tossed it aside. A broken plant stem with a bunch of leaves at the end was beneath the seat. It was blue in color, with small red dots on its leaves. It appeared lifeless. Prior to departing the ship, Supergirl picked it up. It's dead, Supergirl declared as she handed Ryu the blue stem. Ryu seized the Martian plant's stem. Good, he said. In less than a minute, he was holding a fully developed, robust Martian plant. Supergirl exclaimed, wow, as she observed a fully developed Martian plant. So it's true, you can control plants. Ryu smiled at her. He produced a circular disc and hovered the extraterrestrial plant over it. After that, he stored the plant inside the disc by pressing a few holographic keys. For example, can we go to Tokyo now? Supergirl asked. Ryu put his hand on her shoulder and said, yes, they disappeared after being sucked into a vortex. Ryu and Supergirl were in the air, gazing down on Tokyo. The city was being destroyed by the alien machines, and there was destruction everywhere. They landed gently on the roof's edge after floating slowly down to the building below. Taking out his holographic pad, Ryu scanned the front of the factory. After reviewing the data, he declared, "There is no opening." Through telepathy, Karasu told Ryu, "Master, they've captured Superman and Hawkgirl." With a glance at Supergirl, Ryu remarked, "Your cousin and Hawkgirl have failed." "What?" cried Supergirl. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Ryu replied. "I expected that." "What do you mean?" "They have Martians' telepathic abilities. They would know what Superman and Hawkgirl were thinking." "If it is true, then why didn't you give them runes marking Lycia?" Ryu interrupted. "Because it's my plan," she said. "Engage people with what they expect. It is what they are able to discern and—" He laughed and glanced at Supergirl. "It settles them into predictable patterns of response, occupying their minds while you wait for the extraordinary momenta that which they cannot anticipate." Ryu was given a disbelieving look by Supergirl. "In short, all heroes are nothing but a diversion," she stated. "Yeah," Ryu nodded his head in agreement. "When remaining heroes will fall in their trap, we will act on my plan. My plan is simple. Give our enemy false victory before attacking them when they least expect us to attack." Supergirl turned to face the factory after shaking her head. She said, "So, what shall we do now? There appears to be no openings." Ryu stated, "We didn't need them, they went through the wall behind them after he took Supergirl's hand." Ryu lifted Supergirl off the floor and carried her inside the factory. "There are 50 aliens in the factory. We have to take them all out without alerting their other bases," he said, hastily drawing out his pad. "But how?" inquired Supergirl. Batgirl, who could operate in the background, wasn't her. She was Supergirl. She liked to bash the heads of villains. The situation at Carter's house was different. She didn't have to deal with more than 10 aliens at the time, but now all have dealt with over 20 without warning anyone. As a picture of Supergirl's suit appeared on the screen, Ryu slid the screen onto his pad. He pressed one of her suit's special buttons. She became invisible as the helmet slid down on Supergirl's face. "Cool!" exclaimed Supergirl. "A camouflage mode." Ryu clicked once more as Supergirl reappeared. "Yes," he replied. The helmet of Supergirl slid back into the inside of her suit. "With hope," she said, "so, we're still going to work on my new suit after invasion, right?" The other heroes were in Metropolis getting ready to free Hawkgirl and Superman while Ryu and Supergirl were busy in Tokyo. "Sorry we're late," said Green Lantern. "Had to stop and rescue some civilians." Flash inquired, "What did you call us back for?" Diana responded, "Superman and Hawkgirl were captured," gesturing toward the factory. "They're trapped somewhere inside there." "Whoa!" exclaimed Flash. Green Lantern noticed that 3 of them were missing and asked, "And where are Batman, Supergirl, and Ryu?" "I couldn't contact with Ryu and Supergirl. Something is blocking my power to reach them," Jean stated. He said, as for Batman, lowering his gaze, he acted heroically to the very end. "The Bat's gone?" Flash exclaimed, looking surprised. Diana remarked, "He was a true warrior." Green Lantern remarked, "This is not good," while glancing at the factory. "Definitely not good." The room was enormous and crammed with gadgets that looked like computers. A red orb floated in the middle of the tube. There were a lot of invaders on the ground. They were twisted at strange angles. Supergirl and Ryu appeared out of nowhere, and their helmets returned to their respective outfits. "What is it?" Supergirl walked over to the red eyes and asked. Ryu said, "The ion matrix crystal," as he examined some data on his holographic pad. "If we can remove that, it'll shut down the whole plant." Supergirl said, "Got it," and proceeded to take it off. Ryu said, "Don't, Supergirl," preventing her from acting. Supergirl looked on his face. "Why?" Ryu approached the orb and set a tiny gadget on it, saying, "Removing it would alert other aliens' bases." He touched it with his finger and turned the gadget on. "It is an explosive. We are temporarily leaving this factory active." After Ryu touched her shoulder, they vanished into a whirlpool. One of the most intricate mazes, the Maze of Infinitely, is where they first appeared. There are many things that could kill someone there, including illusions and dangerous traps. Supergirl and Ryu were both in the center of the maze, which is one of its safest areas. The ceiling of the spacious circular hall reflected the weather without any of its negative effects. Ryu said, "Welcome the Maze of Infinitely," as he made his way to the large hologram of Earth that stood in the middle of the hall. Ryu was being followed by Supergirl. "What kind of place is this?" she inquired, surveying the area. Ryu informed her, "It's my personal space." "Well, nice," asserted Supergirl. Ryu moved to face the hologram. Then he called, "Merlin." In front of him, Merlin materialized as 0 and 1, when he said, "Yes, Master." Ryu handed a storage device to Merlin and said, "I want you to analyze this Martian plant." Levitating the device into the air, Merlin opened it to scan the alien plant inside. Supergirl looked at Merlin, who was scanning the plant by encircling it with a blue shield, and asked, "What is he?" He was adjusting the shield with his fingers. Suddenly, Merlin appeared next to Supergirl. He identified himself as Merlin. Most enhanced revolutionary life form and intelligent network. "It's nice to meet you, Supergirl." Supergirl said, "Well, it's nice to meet you too, Merlin," with a hint of discomfort. Although she had seen artificial intelligence before, this was the first time she had encountered one that behaved so much like a human. After giving a nod, Merlin vanished and resurfaced next to the shield. He started looking around the plant once more. "He is so much like," Supergirl said, turning to face Ryu. "A human," said Ryu. "I know." The remaining heroes cleared away any obstructions in their way and walked for what seemed like hours after the final Martian passed through the corridors. They eventually came to a halt in front of a circular door after some time. And then Jean touched the door. "I sense that they are somewhere beyond these walls," he stated. Diana tried using her strength to pry the door open, but it was too much. "It's no use," the woman stated. "We have to find another way." Green Lantern said, "Stand back," and moved forward. He cracked a crack as he fired at the door. Jean remarked, "We don't have much time left," as Green Lantern prepared a doorway. It took several minutes for the doorway to open. Superman and Hawkgirl were hanging upside down with their eyes closed when the group entered. Diana exclaimed, "Great Hera," with a look of shock on her face. When Jean abruptly stopped, the others hurried to get them down. "Wait," he exclaimed, warily. "Something is not right." The eyes of Hawkgirl and Superman opened abruptly. When they noticed how red their eyes were, they were taken aback. Flash cried out, "It's a trap," as the exits abruptly shut. Yellow gas poured from the holes that had formed around the walls. As they breathed in the gas, everyone coughed and gasped. They began to descend, gradually losing consciousness. "Lanterna." Diana coughed aloud. "You're a ringer." Everyone was soon unconscious. Green Lantern struggled to focus while attempting to use his ring. He said, "Can't focusa," just before he passed out. Smirking, the two imposters approached the fallen heroes before changing back into their original, pallid appearance. A few distances away from them, a shadow whirled into a single set of bright red eyes that watched everything before shutting. "So this is your personal dimension and only you can enter and exit from this dimension," Supergirl said after Ryu explained the dimension to her. "Yes," Ryu replied. Supergirl exclaimed, "Wow!" as she peered around. "So is it really a giant maze?" "It's not a giant maze. It's an infinite maze," Ryu replied. "It's one of the most dangerous places." Before Ryu could say anything to Supergirl, his shadow changed, twisted, and rose, assuming the shape of Karasu, a familiar raven. His shoulder was where she landed. Karasu telepathically said, "Master, I've a news," and Ryu and Supergirl could both hear her voice. Supergirl said, "Did this raven just talk telepathically?" while pointing to Karasu. "Yes," Ryu replied with a smile. "Meet Karasu Chan, my guardian angel. Other than me, she is only one who can enter and exit from this dimension." "Hello," said Karasu. Supergirl said, Hi," in greeting. Ryu responded, "Well, anyway, so what is news, Karasu Chan?" "The invaders have captured all heroes, except Batman," stated Karasu, who is heading towards Gotham. "Another thing is that Martian has somehow managed to secure his mind from all invaders." By tapping his chin, Ryu remarked, "Jean is smarter than I thought." Karasu said, "One more thing, their leader, Imperium is coming." "Then we have to move fast," Supergirl stated. Ryu gave a nod. He said, "Merlin, what is the result?" Before Ryu, Merlin appeared. "Well, we can make nerve gas from it, but..." Supergirl's eyebrow went up. "But?" she inquired. "According to Merlin, the gas is not safe to the Earth's environment." Supergirl let out a sigh. "There goes our plan C." Ryu grinned and said, "Not really, we can still use this gas, I've a plan." A white-skinned alien who was manning the Metropolis factory's entrance said to another member of its species, "We captured them in our Tokyo factory," while displaying the partner's shoulders and the unconscious bodies of Ryu and Supergirl. One of the factory guards said, "Put them with other heroes," as the door was opened for them. They entered and proceeded down the hallway until they arrived at a room containing the remaining heroes. They were all unconscious, and something that looked like a huge piece of flypaper was holding them in place. After placing the unconscious bodies of Ryu and Supergirl next to those heroes, the two aliens turned around and departed. Superman called out to the Martian, "Jean, Jean, wake up." Jean groaned as he slowly awoke. "Supermana," he snapped, turning to face Superman. "You shouldn't have to risk your lives for us," Superman remarked. Jean asked, "Would you have done less for me?" And Superman believed he had a point. When he woke up, Flash said, "Oh, my aching Hida." Before long, everyone aside from Ryu and Supergirl was coming too. Abruptly, an invader approached from above, observing the heroes. He declared, "Earth's mightiest heroes," as his shape abruptly changed, "Welcome." "Senator Carter," yelled Superman. Carter grinned and remarked, "Unfortunately, the real Carter never returned from Mars." Superman glared at the phony senator and remarked, "I know. You used me to weaken Earth's defenses." Carter sneered and remarked, "You were so eager to cooperate. Thanks to you, the humans were totally helpless against us." "It's not over yet," Superman pronounced, scowling. "Wrong again, Superman," Carter uttered as he opened the ceiling by pressing something against a panel. There was a huge ship outside the black storm clouds. Suddenly, a small boat flew toward them from the ship. Above them, the ship hovered. Carter impersonator proclaimed, "All hail the Imperium," and then bowed with the other aliens, with the exception of two who had brought Ryu and Supergirl. Without warning anyone, they disappeared into the darkness. Imperium appeared as a floating tentacle blob as it stepped out of the ship. He ordered, "Jean, it's been a long time," and Jean positioned himself in front of it. Jean was compelled to return to his original form. "Much better. You have defied us for centuries." The mothership was now occupied by the aliens who had brought Ryu and Supergirl. Before they transformed into Ryu and Supergirl, the silver rings surrounded them. Supergirl said, "Your toys are better than Batman's," while tapping her wrist with a silver bracelet. "Thanks," Ryu said. Then he threw Supergirl a bag. The bag was discovered by Supergirl. Little round devices that held Martian's nerve gas were found inside the bag. He went on, "You know what to do." Supergirl gave a nod, and she and Ryu took off in separate directions. Without anyone noticing, they started placing gadgets throughout the ship. It wouldn't take long, given their speed. When they got back to the factory after planting all the devices, they saw Imperium torturing the final Martian. They pretended to be Imperium's troops. In order to prevent Supergirl from acting recklessly and jeopardizing their plans, Ryu placed his hand on her shoulder. Imperium said, "You're hiding something," in a concerned tone. Its tentacles pierced John's skin and dug deeper into his body, causing him immense pain. "A secret deep into the recesses of your mind. Is this another of your Martian tricks?" Jean questioned, "Do I sense fear?" Imperium began to torture Jean more severely. It demanded, "What are you hiding?" Abruptly, a laser blasted it away from Jean. Unaware that they were Ryu and Supergirl in disguise, Imperium turned around and saw its own two soldiers. "What are you doing?" Ryu said, "Shut up, ugly," as he and Supergirl shocked everyone by changing back into their original forms. "Now," Jean yelled, seizing the opportunity to transform back into his alternate form. And then there was a blast. With wide eyes, everyone looked up to see Batman standing on the tube's hole where the core was being kept. Seeing him alive was another surprise. "Batman!" exclaimed Flash, startled. "It can't be!" Diana cried in disbelief. Jean clarified, "I mentally shielded him, so he couldn't be detected." It changed from red to blue when Batman placed something on the core. Carter said, horrified, "What have you done?" Batman responded, "Reversed the ion charge," as the blue engulfed the factory. "The crystal!" exclaimed Imperium. "Destroy it." The invaders began shooting at both Batman and the crystal. However, Ryu appeared in front of Batman and blocked all laser blasts. He swiftly seized the Dark Knight and, as the blast struck the tube innocuously, teleported away. "It's shielded!" exclaims Carter. Supergirl began using her heat vision to break her cousin's restraints as she flew in the direction of the other heroes. As she observed her cousin's state, she thought, "Thank God, I charged myself before coming here." Her cousin was especially helpless due to the lack of sunlight. Superman saw another Supergirl and Ryu, who were still trapped, and he asked, "How?" Supergirl remarked, "They are fake." She went to her copy after releasing her cousin and grabbed the silver bracelet on her copy's wrist as it transformed into a pale alien. See. The machine in the factory received the iron charge that Batman had inserted into the core. The dark clouds dissipated when a powerful blue light from the pump outside the factory struck them. The clouds parted, and sunlight poured through the opening of the factory. The invaders began shrieking in agony as the sunlight struck them. A few of the invaders were able to stay out of the sun. People who didn't stay away from it melted. As Imperium attempted to flee, Jean sprang out of him, snatching his tentacles and dragging him in the direction of the lights. Imperium cried out, "No," as he attempted to retreat. As he pulled the alien toward the sun, Jean questioned, "You live underground and shun the light. Why? Does it burn your pale, putrid skin?" Imperium's skin boiled and bubbled, and he screamed. "That is one nasty sunburn," Flash said, pretending to be someone else. Superman felt his abilities returning as he gazed up at the sun. He turned and aimed his heat ray at Hawkgirl's restraints, grinning. She was able to free her arm and grasp her mace. Green Lantern's restraints turned to dust as she proceeded to free him after smashing her own. Supergirl punched Diana's restraints while Green Lantern aimed his ring at Flash's. "Destroy them," Imperium commanded, smoking in his form. "I don't think so," concluded Ryu. Fire release. Dragon Flame release song technique. He hurled a flurry of fireballs shaped like dragon heads at the soldiers of Imperium. As many were burned by the blazing fire, the flame heads struck their targets. The other heroes soon joined the battle. They each started using their powers to attack the aliens. Hawkgirl smashed the aliens into slime as she dove toward them. The aliens were knocked unconscious as Flash rushed through them. The aliens were blasted away by Green Lantern's fire. As they poured more sunlight into the factory, Superman, Supergirl, and Diana were creating more holes. When Ryu clapped his hands together, a huge tree shot up from the ground. The entire roof was carried away by its elongated branches. The invaders began to melt as sunlight flooded the entire room. Jean and Imperium continued their tug-of-war in the meantime. Jean threw Imperium to the ground when he attempted to insert his tentacle further into his temple. Then Imperium began to drift back toward his ship. Seeing him, Carter, who was shooting at the heroes, attempted to join him. "Imperium, wait," he cried out, leaping to seize Imperium. Imperium shouted, "Unhand me, worm," and swatted Carter away. As Imperium stepped into his ship, Cart collapsed to the ground without fanfare. More sunlight came in as the ship began to fly away. Carter screamed, "No," as sunlight struck him and he transformed into a pool of slime. Diana saw that Imperium was escaping while she was obstructing the invaders' fire. She snatched up her lasso. However, Ryu intervened before she could take any action. Ryu said, "Diana, let him go." The Princess of Amazon turned to Ryu immediately. "What?" "Just handle the invaders who were still on Earth." "Leave Imperium to me," Ryu replied. "I've left some surprises in his ship." Despite raising an eyebrow, Diana nodded and went off to deal with other invaders. Flash exclaimed, "Maybe we better get out of here," as he saw the factory began to collapse due to the damage they had caused. Superman remarked, "Not without them," pointing to several individuals who were confined in cocoons. He separated them from the cocoon. "Flash, Supergirl, give me a hand." Supergirl and Flash each carried a victim to Green Lantern, who surrounded them with a bubble of protection using his ring. Hawkgirl, avoiding the falling debris, cried out, "This whole place is going to blow." The Green Lantern closed the dome and began carrying the hostages, saying, "Everybody, stay close." Saying, "Let's get out of here," Ryu stepped through the rubble that stood in his path. Superman grabbed Flash and flew after Green Lantern as he flew with the hostages to the exit. Jean, Supergirl, Hawkgirl, and Wonder Woman took Batman's hands and carried him to the exit. Just as everyone had escaped, the factory exploded. As the factory was reduced to rubble, they safely landed. As the mothership returned to the sky, they raised their eyes. When Hawkgirl said, "Imperium is leaving," "Not really," Supergirl grinned as she raised her gaze to the ship. "We've left some goodbye gifts for him." "What is it?" Flash inquired. The mothership left Earth's atmosphere, and Ryu responded, "Martian's nerve gas," as he took out his holographic pad and typed some commands. All of the equipment that Ryu and Supergirl had planted inside the mothership began to beep before blowing up and releasing Martian nerve gas, which rendered all of the aliens inside the ship paralyzed. Ryu added, "Now, time to clean up," and slid the screen before pressing a big button. The ship contained a device that was significantly larger than the others. Before encircling the mothership with a massive energy shield, it beeped 3 times. The shield then started to get smaller. At one point, the entire ship vanished entirely in 10 minutes. Everyone on Earth looked up as the city was flooded with bright lights after the dark clouds that had covered it vanished. "So it's finally over," says Supergirl. When she turned around, Ryu was nowhere to be seen. "What do you think, Ryu?" she asked. Flash remarked, "I think he pulled Batman on us." Supergirl let out a sigh. Ryu abruptly said, "Not really," from behind them. They saw Ryu eating noodles when they swiftly turned around. "I was hungry, so I went Japan to buy some noodles," said Ryu. He swallowed after slowly chewing the noodles. "Fight makes me hungry." "You're speaking in my language now," Flash remarked. He hurried over to Ryu and asked, "Can I have one?" He attempted to put an arm around his shoulder, but it simply slipped through him. When Ryu finished his meal, he said, "If you want one, buy yourself one." "Ah, my bad." Superman pretended to cough in order to attract everyone's attention. As he said, "We'll still need to handle remaining aliens, so we'll split in the same teams as earlier." Other heroes nodded. Superman and Hawkgirl went out first, then Green Lantern and Flash. Batman vanished somewhere, and Diana and John were the last to depart. It was just Supergirl and Ryu. "So, want to eat something before going work?" Ryu responded, "I'm still hungry." After giving it some thought, Supergirl said nonchalantly, "Sure." Grinning, Ryu took her hand. He said, "Then let's go. I know one shortcut," and they vanished into thin air. The team removed the remaining facilities that were dispersed throughout the globe over the course of the following few weeks. All of the invaders had either been destroyed or had fled after a month. However, people continued to fear that it might occur again. Thankfully, Batman found a way to fix it. A satellite floated in space outside the orbit of the Earth. Batman approached Superman from behind as he was inside the satellite, gazing at Earth, which appeared so far away. Superman questioned the Dark Knight, "Incredibly, dear stockholders know about this, Bruce?" Batman said, "A line item hidden in the aerospace R&D budget while examining the enormous satellite. This watchtower will act as an early warning system that will detect other invasion from space." Flash said, "And it also has a fully stocked kitchen," as he, Supergirl, and Diana came in with a fruit smoothie and 2 iced mochas. "Iced mocha?" Superman said, "No thanks," and waved his hand. Diana sipped her beverage, relishing the novel flavor. She smiled and said, They don't have these on the Mischira." Flash said, "Stick around, princess," with a sudden smile. "I'll show you the ropes." "Perhaps I will," she smiled, Wonder Woman. Green Lantern acknowledged, "An impressive installation," as he and Hawkgirl descended toward the group. "Most impressive. But what's it got to do with us?" Supergirl was looking around the satellite while sipping her smoothie in her old supersuit. Then she saw that John and Ryu were gone. She inquired, "Where are Ryu and John?" Ryu said, "I'm here," as he emerged from the metal wall. He approached Supergirl. "Smoothie?" asked Supergirl. When Ryu said, "No thanks, maybe later." Superman cast a distant glance down at Earth. He turned back to the group and remarked, "I once thought I could protect the world by myself, but I was wrong." Ryu muttered, "Foolish thought if you ask me," but Supergirl and Superman could clearly hear him. Supergirl poked him in the stomach with an elbow. "Ow." "I know, I was foolish," exclaimed Superman with a smile. "Working together, we saved the planet. And I believe that if we stay together, as a team, we can be a force that could truly work the ideals of truth and justice." Flash got it and said, "What, like a bunch of super friends?" "More like a Justice League," Superman grinned. Flash voiced again, "Do you have any idea how corny that sounds?" He placed his hand on Superman's and said, "But maybe the big man's got a point. With all of us behind it, it might just work. Count me in." "Me too," said Green Lantern as he walked up to them and covered Flash's hand. Hawkgirl did as he did, saying, "And me," she touched Green Lantern's hand. Diana put her hand on Hawkgirl's and said, "I find the man's world fascinating. I'll gladly join, even if my mother doesn't approve." Supergirl grinned. After she said, "I'll also help in my free time." "I'm in." He placed her hand on Diana's. She gave Ryu a look. "What about you, Ryu?" After giving them a sly smile, Ryu turned away and left them, after saying, "I'm not a hero. Just call me when you'll truly need me." He vanished in the murder of crows, leaving behind a few black feathers that fell apart into tiny bits of light. "Well," Supergirl said, "it means he isn't in." Superman turned to face Batman and said, "What about you, Batman?" Batman remarked, "I'm not much of a people person." Before turning to face Green Lantern, he pondered for a moment. "But if you need me, and you will, give me a call. What can you tell me about Ryu?" The Green Lantern said, "What do you want to know?" Batman replied, "Everything that you know. Ryu is young, but a skilled fighter. He knows many fighting styles. He can use various weapons, said the Green Lantern. I've also heard from his most of opponents that he copied their fighting styles just looking at them. I don't know it's true or not. Indeed, Batman reflected, recalling his battle with Ryu in which Ryu mimicked every move he made. About his abilities, Ryu has superhuman strength, speed, flight and invulnerability as well as ability of becoming intangible and teleportation. His most of powers are still unknown, John said as he looked at Batman, but I know he can control all 5 elements as well as plants. Batman questioned, what about illusions? Can he use them? Yes, the illusions are one of his favorite things, Green Lantern acknowledged. He likes to trick his opponents with illusions. It's one of things that annoy me most. You can't tell the difference between reality and his illusions. He is very good in them. If you asked me, he is one of dangerous man I know. Batman gave a nod, turned around, and left. Green Lantern said, and one more thing, and Batman paused to give him a look. I've also heard rumors that he is an empath. Supergirl remarked, he can sense other people's emotions? Yes, Green Lantern said with a nod. Batman thought, that means you can't lie to him, and walked away. Superman looked at all the heroes who nodded their heads in agreement and said, anyway, we're all agreed, right? Wait, Diana said, surveying the area. Jean's not here. She saw that the final Martian was gone. While searching for the Martian, Flash questioned, yeah, where is he? When Superman flew to where Jean was, he saw that he was gazing into the dark, at his planet, which appeared to be inaccessible. Going over to Jean, he said, Jean, are you all right? My loved ones and family are long gone, Jean said, lowering his head. I am the last of my kind. Superman touched Jean's shoulder and remarked, I understand how that feels. Now, Mars is dead and I am alone in the universe, Jean went on. We can never replace the family you've lost, but we'd be honored if you could learn to call Earth your home, Superman said. Grinning, they both descended to join their new teammates. 2 weeks had passed since the Justice League was formally established. The majority of people agreed with the concept. In actuality, they were ecstatic to have some of the world's greatest heroes, and Wonder Woman, a new heroine, formed a team to defend the planet and address the main dangers. In an interview, the heroes disclosed Watchtower and their plans. But not everybody was content. Several powerful organizations had united to form the Justice League. Going rogue would have been detrimental to Earth's defense. Since Superman had gone rogue during Darkseid's attack on Earth, all government agencies were already paranoid. The final straw was the Justice League. Sitting in front of the United States was one of the solutions they were trying to find for this issue. General. The general asked, how could you help us to solve this problem? He wore a typical army uniform, had blue eyes and white hair. His 2 soldiers were behind him, brandishing advanced weapons. I know your government has decided to make a secret division to countering the power of metahumans in the world, particularly the members of the Justice League, the individual replied with a smirk. What is its name? Aha. Cadmus, am I right? The general's gaze expanded. How did you know that? It is a top secret. The individual said, I have my way, General, and put his hand beneath his chin. The general took notice when he said, I can give Cadmus the advanced alien technology they desire, but they are not cheap. After several minutes of silence, the general said, very well, can I ask you something? And received a nod from the individual. Why a hero and member of Justice League like you wants to help the organization that has basically made to stop the people like you? The individual stepped forward, revealing his crimson eyes that were spinning in a 3-tomo pattern. It was Ryu. Because I'm not like them. I'm not a hero, I'm a mercenary, he replied, and the Justice League is just my part-time hobby. So you're a mercenary, informed the general. After settling into the seat, he turned to face the mercenary. Can you kill any member of Justice League if he or she went rogue? The reply from Ryu was, only if you gave me a good price for it. Even Superman? Inquired the general. He awaited Ryu's response. Ryu grinned. Even Superman, was his response. I know he is one of the strongest people, but he has a weakness. And I'm not talking about kryptonite. His heart, he doesn't have the heart to kill his enemy. The general grinned at his response. He got to his feet. Then he held out his hand and said, I like your style, Ryu. Grabbing General's hand and shaking it, Ryu grinned and uttered, call me Madara, Uchiha Madara. Naruto went to the shower after completing his daily workout, and as he entered, cold water trickled down his chest and shoulders. He glanced back and saw his image in the mirrors. In addition to honing his abilities and intellect, his training had left his body in top shape. It had a nice shape and was scar-free thanks to his healing factor. Then he glanced over his left shoulder and back at the silver-colored marking that appeared to be a Fuinjutsu marking. His body underwent an experiment to give him superhuman strength, speed, and invulnerability, but he ended up with more than that. Start of flashback. Naruto had linked MERLIN to the lab system a year prior. MERLIN proved to be very helpful to him in all of his work during those times. They had even been able to accomplish what Naruto had desired with some stolen technology. Karasu questioned, "Are you sure it's safe?" His shadow clone was drawing seals on Naruto's back and left shoulder as he sat on the stone bench. The answer was, "It's safe." MERLIN. When Karasu was a machine, Naruto had no idea how MERLIN could decipher his telepathic message. The only explanation he could think of was that MERLIN had created it from chakra. Explained MERLIN, "The whole process is safe. We've tested it many times and its results were remarkable. It had failed last time because the master had treated Merlin," interrupted Naruto. "Just go to the point." "Sorry, master," said MERLIN. He explained Karasu by opening a holographic screen. "The process is simple. We are going to use completely new technology, which we have developed in past 12 months, Fuinjutsu seals and chakra to fuse alien living metal inside the master's body. It will take at least 10 months to the master's body to adapt this changes." "Okay," said Karasu. "Why you need me?" As his clone completed drawing the seals and vanished in a cloud of smoke, Naruto remarked, "You're here to supply the chakra because, aside from me, you're the only one who has enough chakra for this." Naruto got up and moved in the direction of a round glass tank. He entered by phasing through the glass. Then he reached for the oxygen mask and covered his nose and mouth with it. He signaled to MERLIN. As Naruto's body rose several feet in the glass tank, MERLIN entered a command on the holographic screen to begin the process. Subsequently, numerous silvery tubes emerged from the floor and connected to various parts of his body. The tank filled with a clear, silvery liquid as MERLIN typed another command. It reached the top in a minute. Karasu turned to MERLIN. "Supply the chakra, Karasu," in his words. As a bright light engulfed the Fuinjutsu marking over Naruto's body, Karasu sent her chakra into the small disc she was standing on. According to MERLIN, it should be enough. The glass tank glowed so brightly that the entire room went white for a few minutes before returning to normal as he turned on the machine when Karasu stopped sending her chakra. MERLIN stated, "All body functions are working normally," while glancing at the screen. Naruto was floating in the silvery liquid when he turned to face him. "Now, we'll have to wait at least 10 months. Naruto had been inside the glass container for the previous 10 months. Although his body had not changed much during these times, there were some obvious differences, such as his skin tone being significantly lighter than before and the permanent, silver-colored Fuinjutsu markings all over his body. Karasu inquired, "How is Master?" As she examined the data, MERLIN turned to face Karasu. "His body has perfectly adapted all changes. His condition is good," he stated. "But when will he wake up?" inquired Karasu. MERLIN responded, "Now," while adjusting the holographic display. In order to get rid of any remaining silvery liquid, MERLIN drained the glass container and filled it with water. When Naruto's healing factor took over, he immediately sealed off all the holes the tubes had left after draining the water and removing all the tubes that had plugged inside Naruto's body. After taking out the glass, he carefully laid Naruto's body on the ground. Naruto was kneeling. He got to his feet slowly and took off the oxygen mask covering his nose and mouth. He opened his eyes and cracked his joints as he stretched his arms over his head. In both eyes, his 3 tomo were spinning quickly. He shut his eyes, then opened them again. His eyes were dark blue as usual. He approached Karasu and MERLIN slowly. They said, "Welcome back, Master, MERLIN. How are you feeling?" Karasu inquired. Naruto responded, "Much better than before," while tensing up. MERLIN turned to him and said, "Show me mirror." A mirror appeared on the floor next to Naruto as MERLIN nodded. Naruto turned to face his image in the mirror. Looking up and down at his body, he remarked, "I can feel my chakra has become denser and my senses have become sharper than before, but from the outside, there are not many changes in my body. Maybe it was because other alien DNA, which we'd used to stabilize the living metal," said MERLIN. "Maybe, you're right," mentioned Naruto. He turned around. Then he began punching and kicking the air. He threw more kicks and punches into the air before stopping, saying, "I'm feeling lighter than before." He looked at MERLIN and said, "Good, He sniffed the air and said, "Merlin, get ready. We're going to test my new body's limits. But first, I need a bath." Naruto returned in new clothes 30 minutes later. He was dressed in black pants and a plain black gi over mesh armor. He had no shoes on. After saying, "Merlin, first, we are going to measure my new strength," he moved in the direction of the punching machine. He pressed the button. "Impressive. This punch is 20 times stronger than your chakra-enhanced punch," said Merlin. The outcome impressed him. After saying, "I can do better than this," Naruto punched once more, shattering the punching machine into numerous pieces. Karasu was shocked, but she didn't show it like Merlin did. Her jaw fell to the ground. Naruto smirked and remarked, "It's my pure strength. I didn't even use my chakra in it." As Merlin noted on the screen, "Well, then strength is superhuman," she observed. "Now, durability." Naruto stood in front of a group of robots brandishing everything from basic kunai launchers to advanced extraterrestrial weaponry. Merlin declared, "Test. Durability. First weapon. Kunai launcher." As the first robot emerged with a kunai launcher in his grasp, Naruto was the target of it. Fire. The robot threw Naruto a flurry of kunai. All of the kunai struck Naruto's body and simply bounced off him, despite his experience and battle instincts screaming for him to move. He let out a sigh of relief. "Interesting," concluded Merlin. "Fire second weapon." When Naruto saw other robots holding weapons, he let out a sigh. "I've gotten myself into what?" And each robot shot at Naruto with its own weapon in succession. Naruto's clothing had deteriorated by the end of the durability test. It was ripped and tattered. They had numerous burn marks and holes in them. However, Naruto was completely untarnished. Finally, Naruto said in a low voice. The end of the durability test pleased him. Merlin commanded, "Prepare the plasma cannon," as the floor parted and a massive cannon was raised. "What?" yelled Naruto. "Merlin, I think this is enough. Charge the cannon in full power." At the cannon's tip, a blue energy began to build. "What the hell, Merlin?" The power of the cannon was fully realized. Fire. Naruto forgot that he could teleport or turn intangible to escape the blast of light blue energy that exploded from the cannon on his chest. When the massive explosion struck the floor, it produced a dazzlingly bright light and a strong shockwave that shook the surrounding area. Everything, including robots, was blasted by the shockwave. With a drop of perspiration, Karasu questioned, "Do you not think you have overdone it?" Sheepishly, Merlin uttered, "Well, maybe, little." After just a few minutes of the blast, things returned to normal. The blast had left a huge crater in its wake. It was surrounded by nothing. Merlin and Karasu both noticed Naruto standing by himself in the center of the charred crater. In addition to being safe from the fire blast, he was also unharmed. But he had lost all his clothes. Anger was evident on his face, and his ragged pants were all that remained. Merlin stated, "I think we are in trouble," after observing Naruto's irate expression. "Not we, it's you," changed Karasu. Naruto yelled, "Are you wanted to kill me?" Merlin was about to respond when a plethora of holographic screens appeared and vanished in the flashes all around them. Karasu said, "Are you doing this?" Merlin shook his head, as she could see. "Then who?" The plasma cannon's tip abruptly turned in their direction. Energy started to build up. "Stop that cannon!" yelled Karasu. When Merlin attempted to stop the cannon, he exclaimed, "I can't. Someone has restricted me from accessing the system." "But you're the system." After completing the procedure, the cannon blasted them. "Shit!" swore Merlin while Karasu vanished into the shadows. He swiftly dematerialized himself. The blast was weak because the plasma cannon was not yet operating at full capacity. Nevertheless, a tiny section of the roof was destroyed. As all holographic screens disappeared and things returned to normal, Naruto inhaled deeply to help him relax. It was Merlin, he called. Merlin appeared in front of Naruto a moment later, and Karasu emerged from the shadows after him. With a, "Sorry, Master," Merlin Karasu asked, "Master, how did you control the plasma cannon?" Because she thought Naruto was somehow responsible for the strange behavior of the plasma cannon. "I didn't," said Naruto. Suddenly, Merlin's mind made sense. He called forth a holographic display. "Master, clear your mind and try to control this," he replied. He followed his instructions, but Naruto arched an eyebrow. As the screen in front of him abruptly changed to an image of his father, Minato, holding his pregnant mother, Kushina, He focused and waved a hand. He repeatedly waved his hand as the images underwent changes. Okay. This is unexpected, Karasu remarked. Naruto was thinking deeply. He glanced at both of his partners. It's like I can sense. Merlin stated, the data inside machines, and he noticed that Naruto nodded. Just like me. As Naruto commanded, Merlin, scan my whole body. All around him, the silver rings materialized. From up to down, they went. After a few minutes, he was confronted by a holographic representation of his body. Every cell in your body, every bone and tissue. In short, your whole body has fused with the living metal, stated Merlin. Your bones. Your whole skeleton structure has become much denser and stronger than before. Even your skin is as strong as that material. The experiment is partly successful. It's too early to say anything about its side effect, but I found this. He raised his arm to focus on Naruto's brain. He brightened the corresponding areas and said, this experiment has activated some unknown parts of your brain. Maybe, one of them or all of them are responsible for my new power, Naruto remarked after giving it some considerable thought. The hologram disappeared when he waved a hand. In short, the side effect of this experiment is your cyberkinesis power, said Karasu. I think so, said Naruto. End of flashback. The greatest of all inventors, Naruto thought, was named Accident. Merlin and his cyberkinesis power, two of his greatest inventions, were unintentional. While his cyberkinesis power proved to be his life's cheat code, Merlin proved to be a great help and partner like Karasu. He was able to learn more about this dimension's technology thanks to both of them. As soon as Merlin appeared in front of Naruto, he wrapped the towel around his waist and left the shower to head to his bedroom. He said, Master, see this, as holographic screens appeared before him. Naruto halted his progress after glancing at the screen. He pondered, 3 billion lives. It was a newspaper about outer space. It claimed that Jon Stewart was the one who destroyed Ajuris Point 4, taking 3 billion lives in the process. Jon followed the witness, a space pirate named Conjure. R.O., as he delivered a shipment of illegally obtained weapons to the nearby planet Ajuris Point 4. 3 billion lives were lost when the entire planet exploded after a stray blast from Jon's ring unintentionally struck a weak spot in the crust. Conjure. R.O.? Naruto asked himself. He is Dorian, right? Yes, Master, replied Merlin. Tell me everything that isn't in the news, directed Naruto. Well, the blast from Jon's ring was deflected by the ship's protective shield before hitting Ajuris 4's crust. Okay. The blast wasn't powerful enough to break the spaceship's protective shield, but it was powerful enough to destroy a whole planet. Bullshit, isn't it? Yeah, replied Naruto. Someone is framing Jon. Green Lantern's bounty is also high, Merlin stated. Naruto asked, really? And he turned to face the screen. He witnessed a bounty. It was large, very large. He blew a soft whistle. Where is Jon? But why you want to collect his bounty? Merlin inquired, seemingly perplexed. Naruto wanted to pick up the bounty, he had surmised. You have enough money to buy anything. Well, if someone is really trying to frame Jon, it means he or she is planning something big, because he or she killed 3 billion people for the plan, Naruto replied. Maybe, he is targeting whole Green Lantern Corps. Or he is targeting bigger than that. You mean the headquarters of the Green Lantern Corps, OA. Naruto gave a nod. His gaze shifted to the screen. If it's true, then it's our only chance to enter OA to collect some knowledge without altering the Guardians of the Universe, he said. And Jon's bounty is the icing on the cake. So where is he? They said, he is here, on Earth, Merlin. Also, the Manhunters are heading toward Earth. Naruto muttered, Manhunters, what a waste of scrap metal, before turning to prepare for a large bounty collection. The robots from Manhunt were larger, possibly more than 2 meters. They wore orange, black, and red body armor, with red eyes and silverfish metal for the face. They appeared to be holding their heads to their bodies because of the silver outline around their necks and the metallic, shiny blue hands. They carried cylinders that resembled metallic staffs and had a hole in the middle. They were in Metropolis, facing the Jean, Hawkgirl, and Flash members of the Justice League. Jean began by asking, what do you want here, in an attempt to learn more about them. The Manhunter in the middle answered, Jon Stewart, the Green Lantern. He was obviously unimpressed. Carefully, Flash asked, what for? That's not your concern, the giant replied, continuing his search. The lone girl in the group asked, obviously not pleased with their answer, wanna bet? Hawkgirl raised her mace and prepared to strike the head of one of the robots, but before she could act, a Manhunter robot grabbed her with one hand and flung her over his head like a bag of potatoes. Before she could tumble onto the cars, Flash sprinted after her and grabbed her. The final Martian attempted to seize the lone giant robot in the interim, but just before he could do so, the Manhunter lifted his metallic stick, and John was ejected after being struck in the midsection by a bluish energy. The robot struck the hero with a staff that reached his full height. The weapons of his companions also reached out. 3 League members and the Manhunters were at odds. Superman joined them a short while later. The Man of Steel yelled, "Back off," as he moved between them and slammed his entire body into one robot while in midair, pushing it against a wall. Compared to the Manhunter, it caused more damage to the wall. His triumph was short-lived, as he was caught off guard by another Manhunter who fired him with his staff. He was pushed back by another shot as Superman attempted to attack him once more. The superhero landed on the ground and took the beam to the chest at that moment. As the beam grew more concentrated, he kept moving forward in the direction of the robot, but his high density enabled him to reach his target and grasp the stick. He grabbed the staff out of Manhunter's grasp and bent it. Then he broke it on his leg in two. When the Manhunter attempted to wrestle Superman, the machine was overpowered by the hero's strength, and Superman threw the Manhunter at his partner, who was rising toward the wall. Superman was relieved to see Flash and ran at him. "We thought you were busy with an earthquake," he said. "It was just a 4.0. You mind telling me what's going on here?" asked Superman. "I wish he." The final Manhunter, standing atop a car, interrupted their conversation by shooting both heroes with his staff. After evading the explosion, the heroes faced the Manhunters once more. The Justice League eventually managed to unite after a few minutes of combat with the Manhunters. One of the Manhunters raised a burning car in his hand and hurled it at the heroes, who escaped well, except for Superman, who chose to absorb the full force of the explosion so as not to harm civilians. The other heroes regrouped with Superman after he had absorbed the full force of the blast. A green energy wall materialized between them just as they were about to attack the Manhunters. "Stop," said Green Lantern's well-known voice. "Better late than never," smirked Flash in response. To the surprise of the rest of the League, Green Lantern turned to face the Manhunters and just walked toward them with hardened eyes. The Manhunter in the center said, "You the Green Lantern known as John Stewart?" John said, "I am," and he faced him. "Your ring," said Manhunter, opening his hand. John gave the Manhunter his ring after a brief moment of hesitation. "John, what are you doing?" Hawkgirl, Superman, and the other League members yelled. John screamed, "Stay out of this," and turned to the team. "You'll accompany us," Manhunter declared. The next, an invisible force struck him, sending him hurtling away from John. Ryu was the one who struck that Manhunter. In front of John, he hovered. "Hello, John," he said, catching John's power ring, which had escaped the Manhunter's grasp due to his unexpected assault. John angrily remarked, "Ryu, it's none of your business, stay out of it." Ryu responded, "It's my business, John," as he went through the Manhunter's personnel. Other Manhunters seized the chance to fire his employees at Ryu after they had finished going through him. Ryu was struck by the blast, but rather than screaming in agony, Ryu turned into a swarm of crows that began to soar through the air. In midair, the crows transformed into a dozen shuriken and then descended upon both robots. One Manhunter escaped the attack, but his partner was not as fortunate. His upper body was pierced by a dozen shuriken. The Manhunter's entire upper body was destroyed when the shuriken exploded after briefly beeping. Although Ryu's attack was similar to Genjutsu, he used his cyberkinesis power to alter the data in the Manhunter's systems to create false images rather than changing the energy flow in the victim's brain. He had discovered this fact in the past few years. Additionally, he discovered that his Sharingan and cyberkinesis abilities had somehow combined. Higher Sharingan was required to operate increasingly complex machinery. He had yet to test his advanced Genjutsu, such as Tsukuyomi, on robots and androids. John, who had been hiding behind a car to escape the blast, was followed by Ryu. "John," he said. John glared at Ryu as he turned around. He questioned, "Why are you doing this?" Ryu grinned. He activated his Sharingan and used Genjutsu on John, saying, "To collect your bounty," as Green Lantern collapsed to the ground, unconscious. John was being searched by the Manhunter, who had escaped Ryu's attack, when a space hog crashed into him from behind, crushing his heads. Big Man on a space bike exclaimed, "No junkyard scrap heap collects a bounty on my watch." He looked like a male chalk. White human with blackened eyelids and blood-red pupilless eyes. He had a very muscular body. He wore black leather biker gear and had long, straggly, gray, black dreadlocks. Superman recognized the man and said, "Lobo?" He punched the robot, sending him flying, and turned back to face the last manhunter. Lobo was the final Zarnian and an intergalactic bounty hunter. His space motorcycle fell to the floor. Ryu held John, who was unconscious, his hands and feet bound in handcuffs, glowing blue, whitish, and his body hovering a few inches off the ground, and he asked, "What are you doing here, Lobo?" Lobo exclaimed, "Well, Ninja Man." Upon spotting Ryu, he glanced at John and said, "Main man, come here to collect some money. Maybe, I'm late. Wanna do 50? 50? Not interested. Come on, you're main man's old friend." After giving it some thought, Ryu remarked, 70. 30, take it or leave it." "Why only 30? Lobo inquired. "Because I've got a spaceship and you don't," Ryu replied. The Justice League approached Ryu and Lobo after eliminating the final manhunter. Superman turned to Lobo and asked, "What's going on, Ryu? And why are you here?" Pointing to John, Flash questioned Ryu, "And why are you holding GL like this?" "We're actually not here," Ryu said to the League members, apologizing for the statement. Confused, Hawkgirl questioned, "What do you mean? You are standing in front of us." As the League members' world began to break like glass and they realized what was truly in front of them, Ryu grinned. It was a T-shaped, medium-sized spaceship with sharp points. The spaceship was black in color. The ship rose into the sky. The ship disappeared as if it had never been there before the Justice League members could take action. Flash questioned, "Is Ryu just kidnapped GL?" "Yes," said the final Martian. Jean had been unsuccessful in his attempt to telepathically track Ryu, John, and even Lobo an hour later in the Watchtower. While Superman, Hawkgirl, and Flash attempted to piece together, why did Ryu kidnap John? The Martian stood gazing into space, his telepathic abilities causing his eyes to glow yellow. Batman, Supergirl, and Wonder Woman appeared out of nowhere. When Wonder Woman said, "We heard, Ryu has kidnapped John," Supergirl said, "I don't believe in it," while crossing her arms. "What happened?" Batman asked. According to Flash, news travels really fast. With a sigh, Superman began to explain to them what had transpired just hours before. "But why does he do that?" asked Supergirl. "Well, I can answer that," a voice that Supergirl alone recognized said. Supergirl turned quickly toward the voice and noticed a familiar face on the computer in the Watchtower. "Merlin?" she asked. Superman pointed to a humanoid figure whose body was composed of 0 and 1 and asked, "Do you know him?" Supergirl nodded, "Yeah, he is Merlin, Ryu's AI. I'm more than just an artificially intelligent, Supergirl, I can ensure that," Merlin responded. "I am most enhanced revolutionary life form and intelligent network, in short Merlin. I'm Master Ryu's assistants." "Well, okay," said Supergirl. Flash questioned, "So why Ryu kidnapped GL? And where are they?" Superman added. Merlin said, "First, see this," displaying the same news that he had shown Ryu or Naruto in the morning. Flash's jaw fell to the ground after reading the news, and the other heroes all stopped talking as they stared at the screen. "The whole planet." Flash interrupted the quiet. Supergirl added, 3 billion lives, after Flash. Hawkgirl narrowed her eyes and asked, "Is this even true?" "It is true." "Why did you think that red robots, manhunters, come here on Earth?" replied Merlin. Batman said, "To arrest Green Lantern," after giving it some thought. "You are really smart as people say about you, Batman," Merlin said. "But the question has remained same, why Ryu captured John?" Diana responded. The words, "See John's bounty," were spoken by Merlin. Every League member looked at the news article. Hawkgirl's mouth fell to the ground when she saw the bounty on John. "No wonder, Ryu has captured John," she remarked. "John's bounty is really high." The Superman questioned, "So where are they now?" Merlin replied, "Ajuris Point 5, waving his hand, where John's trial will be held. I've downloaded its map in Javelin's system if you want to go there." "Thank you," said Superman. Merlin gave a nod, "Goodbye." "1 minute," Batman interrupted. "How did you connect Watchtower's system?" "Unlike your Earthling AI, I don't need to directly download in a system," he replied. He vanished from the computer screen after saying, "Because I am awesome." Hawkgirl said, "Weird, AI," then Flash added, "But I like him." Superman turned to face other people and shook his head. I, Flash, Jean and Hawkgirl, we are going to Ajuris Point 5 to see John's trial, while the rest of you will stay here on Earth. When Supergirl asked, what, why, she desired to accompany them. Superman told his cousin, you're strong, Supergirl. Batman and Diana could use your help if anything goes wrong while we're away. Supergirl gave a nod. When it got close to Ajuris Point 5, Ryu's stealth ship was visible. Ryu said into the microphone, we are here to collect the bounty on John Stewart. He is with us. We are requesting permission to land. Very well, you've permission, the speaker said. Ryu cut the link and pointed his ship in the direction of the planet. John, who had just woken up, said, so that's why you captured me. Ryu turned to face John and remarked, it's better me than Lobo, pointing to Lobo, who was tinkering with a weapon, who don't give a guarantee of his target's life. John gave Lobo a look. After opening and closing his mouth, he remained silent. They eventually came to a halt and touched down on a planet that appeared densely populated even from space. When the hunters and captives arrived in the spaceport on Ajuris Point 5, they were greeted by a huge group of irate aliens who were about to riot when they got off the ship. Along with other signs that made offensive remarks specifically directed at John, they were carrying the anti-Green Lantern signs. Although this was undoubtedly not the best welcome, John took a look at it and wasn't at all shocked. In fact, he kind of welcomed the howls, screams, spitting, and humiliation. They encountered 4 manhunters on a hovering platform before they had even ventured 2 feet from the ship. The lead hunter revealed, we have been tasked with ensuring this prisoner's safety, while he produced a document. Here's your warrant voucher. Now, hand over the prisoner and his ring. Before flipping the hunter John's ring and leaving the restrained John in their care, Ryu took the voucher and verified that it was authentic. He said, okay, then he's your problem now, and he and Lobo departed. As they continued to recount the day's events and attempt to piece together the situation, the 4 League members went up to Ajuris Point 5. They were all failing miserably. As he struggled to comprehend the situation, Flash scratched his chin and asked, do you really think GL killed 3 billion people accidentally? I'm not quite sure, perhaps he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, replied Jean. Hawkgirl stated, we can't tell without knowing the whole truth. Superman gave a nod. 3 Ajuris Point 5 police air cruisers surrounded them and started shooting as they were having a conversation. The police ships would not let the Javelin leave, even though the Man of Steel was able to steer it out of the line of fire. Flash warned, they're not responding to our request to land. Then let me help you, he said as a screen suddenly appeared in front of them, revealing the well-known face of Merlin. Then he connected to the security system of Ajuris Point 5, requesting permission to land. It took a few seconds to respond. This is Ajuris 5's security system. What is your purpose? Javelin was still being pursued by Ajuris 5's police air cruisers, but they ceased firing at him. The response from Merlin was, to attend the Green Lantern, John Stewart's trial. After a minute of silence, the response was, you have permission. Javelin turned toward a spaceport on Ajuris Point 5 after the police air cruisers left him alone. According to Superman, thank you for help. Merlin replied, you are welcome, and vanished from the screen. The Javelin landed in the spaceport after piercing the atmosphere. A recognizable Ryu voice greeted the League members as they stepped off the ship. Welcome to Ajuris Point 5, Ryu acknowledged. He stood by Lobo's side. The Hawkgirl threw her mace at him, and he ducked to avoid it. The mace was returning to Hawkgirl's hand when he caught it. He looked at the mace. He threw it back to Hawkgirl, who swiftly caught it, saying, interesting, a North metal mace. You took John away for money, Superman remarked. I was a better option than Lobo and Manhunters, Ryu stated. He gestured to Lobo with his thumb. Lobo did not find it offensive that he has a tendency to accidentally kill or destroy the objectives and Manhunters. They are the biggest junkyard toaster. Reject excuses for bounty hunters in the entire universe, said Lobo. Ryu said, anyway, let's go. John's trial will start very soon, and he started to leave, Justice League and Lobo trailing behind him. First, let me tell you one thing. Ajuris Point 5 has a highly corrupt judicial system, and their entire judicial system is nothing but a joke. Why? Flash inquired. Ryu answered, you'll see it soon, and proceeded to the location of John's trial. Members of the Justice League, Lobo, and Ryu were seated in the public. A wide variety of alien species were in the crowd because it was a public trial. The public prosecutor was an alien who was extremely thin, had a yellow bald head without eyebrows, purple eyes that were black rather than white, and odd round devices for ears. He was dressed in a futuristic gown. There can be no excuse for this horror. An example must be made, and there will be no escape from punishment, were some of the rhetorical openings John used when the reptilian court guards brought him into the courtroom. The audience instantly roared in agreement. Flash glanced around. He said, "Ryu, where is GL's lawyer?" "There is no criminal lawyer here," Ryu replied. "What?" Flash inquired. With a sigh, Ryu began to explain that the judges had established a law that said a lawyer who defended a defendant who was later found guilty would be punished in the same way as their client in order to guarantee that no defendant would ever again be acquitted. So, in fear, attorneys ceased to practice. Flash remarked, "This system is nothing but a joke." "Told you," Ryu said, then shifted his focus to the trial. "Are you ready to call your first witness?" The voice was coming from a screen that showed 3 robot-like figures. The first has a monotone expression, the second is vengeful, and the third is sad and bored. Although each face was unique, they all had similar robotic designs. "Yes, I am, my lord. I call Conjure, R.O., declared the public prosecutor. With a guard by his side, the space pirate came out of the passageway under the gallery. Conjure, R.O. had a long nose, sharp-looking teeth, insect-like eyes, and pinkish skin. In summary, he resembled a hybrid of an insect, a human, and a shark. He wore a space-themed helmet on his head and was dressed in blue pants and a white sleeveless shirt. When they arrived at the discs hovering at floor level, the security chief swore him to testify. "Conjure, R.O., you agree to let us probe and display any and all memories you have?" asked the man. "I've got nothing to hide," Conjure.R.O. said, stepping on the disc that raised him up to face the prosecutor. "State your name and profession," required the prosecutor. It was said by the space pirate, Conjure, R.O., the space pirate. The prosecutor asked, "You are a criminal and yet you are here to testify as a witness to another crime. Why?" "I may be a thief, but my crimes are nothing compared to what he did," Conjure, R.O. replied, gesturing to John. As the pirate was struck by a cylinder of light, the prosecutor pressed a few buttons on the console before him. "Tell us your encounter with the Green Lantern, John Stewart." Conjure. Ro's memories were projected onto the courtroom screen as he recounted his encounter with John Stewart. He started the story by explaining how he had acquired some blasters and was running to a Juris Point 4 when John began to pursue him close to the moon. He described how, after his ship crashed on a moon, he attacked John, who then disabled it and questioned him. Then he described how his friends tried to save Lantern by attacking him, and he fired back at my friends. One of his blasts bounced off their deflector shields towards a Juris 4. There the blast impacted a volcanic region, causing a devastating reaction that caused the planet to explode. 3 billion, that's how many were on that planet, all gone in an instant. The images and Conjure. Ro's testimony appeared to startle almost everyone in the courtroom, with the exception of Ryu and Lobo. After a moment of silence, everyone in the room began to whisper. In spite of what they were shown, Hawkgirl and Flash felt that Conjure. Ro's testimony was suspicious. When the prosecutor said, "I have no more questions for this witness." After the judge declared, "This account is most disturbing, we will recess," the monitor turned off, and the aliens went off for their break. Lobo went to see John with Ryu and the Justice League. The Flash said to the Green Lantern, "Now, I get it. You wanted to clear your name. That's why you didn't put up a fight back on Earth before Ryu and Lobo captured you." John said sternly, "I told you to stay out of this." "Why would you want that, John?" "We're your friends," mentioned Flash, raising an eyebrow at John. Hawkgirl gave the pirate a look. She clenched her teeth and narrowed her eyes, saying, "That scum is an obvious liar. Give me 5 minutes alone with him and I'll get the truth." John pointed at the debris that had once been the planet of Juris Point 4 and said, "Hawkgirl, Flash, all of you, listen to me, nobody is lying. Do you see that? For emphasis. I did it, I'm guilty." When Lobo heard John, he began to laugh. John clenched his fist and said angrily, "Why are you laughing?" Ryu glanced at John and shook his head. "Do you really believe the blast, which couldn't even penetrate the ship's defense, can destroy the whole planet, even if it hit its weak spot?" asked the man. The Green Lantern's shocked eyes grew wide. It came to him suddenly like a ton of bricks. Ryu asked John, "Do you know how much power is needed to destroy a planet?" "Just ask Lobo." "Well, I fragged my planet for my high school science project. Gave myself a, Lobo said with pride. "Horrible." The League members considered that, but they remained silent. "Okay. I get it, but if I didn't destroy a Juris Point 4, then who did that? John responded. Then his eyes narrowed. Conjure. R.O. He is just a small fish in the pond. There's the big one behind all of this, said Ryu. Who? John asked. When asked, I don't know anything about them, yet, Ryu replied. But I know his or her target is bigger than you. Superman questioned, what is the target if John isn't a target? Ryu's statement, the Green Lantern Corps and its reputation, startled everyone, particularly John. By blaming John, a Green Lantern, for killing 3 billion lives, they have already succeeded to muddy the Green Lantern's reputation. Now, if they prove John is a guilty then. John finished, his eyes tired, then no one will believe in the Green Lantern. Hawkgirl said, now, what is our strategy? They all turned to gaze at Ryu. Ryu sighed as he realized everyone was staring at him. He said, first, and took an item out of his pouch. Without hesitation, he handed John the genjutsu he had already placed around them. John examined the item Ryu had handed him. His power ring was it. His gaze was fixed on Ryu as he asked, how? Ryu grinned. Did you really think that I would hand over your real ring to the rejected hunter? That tin dot couldn't even tell the difference between real and fake, laughed Lobo. Ryu said, use it at the right time, John, and then he turned to face other people. There is something not right there, he said, turning to face the location of a Juris Point 4. We'll divide into 3 teams. First team, Superman and John, will investigate a Juris Point 4 remaining. Because I feel like a lot of life signatures are approaching there. His eyes narrowed. Then he alerted them to something that was not relevant, he grinned. He went on to say, you will definitely find something there, before turning around. Second team is I and Hawkgirl. We will spy on Conjure. R.O. and try to gather more information on him and this incident from other Green Lanterns. What about me? Inquired Flash. What is my task? Who is on my team? Flash, your task is buy us some time in the court, Ryu responded. Flash wasn't entirely sure how to do this. You're asking the world's fastest man to slow things down. It won't be easy. Ryu said, don't worry, Flash. You are not alone, and Karasu emerged from his shadow, landing on his shoulder. Karasu. Shan will help you in this task. But it's a bird? Flash asked, glancing at the raven. Karasu shocked everyone by telepathically saying, yes, but I'm not a normal bird, with the exception of Lobo, who was aware of her. Whoa, exclaimed Flash. Cool, she is a telepath, Jean declared. After saying to Flash, Karasu, Shan is a part of my soul. She is perfectly capable of this task. Ryu turned to Lobo. Do anything to buy the time if you get any hint Flash is losing the case. For this job, I will give you another 10%. Lobo gave a thumbs up and said, I can do that. John said, I always thought you were not a team player, without warning. There is one thing I've learned in my life, John, you can't achieve anything alone. Ryu turned to face John and said, pausing to observe his response before turning to face the other players in the league. They nodded when he asked, do you understand your tasks? He took Hawkgirl's shoulder and said, good. Let's go. Hawkgirl and he were both sucked into a vortex and disappeared. He has qualities of a good leader, the final Martian remarked. When Karasu said, leadership is in his blood, they took notice. The country, where he had born, had total 5 leaders. 4 in all 6 leaders were related to Master and one of them was his father. Ryu is full of surprises, said Flash. With John on a floating disc in front of the 3 judges Monitor and Conjure. R.O. on a similar disc, prepared for questioning, the court was prepared to resume. The judge said, John Stewart, you may now question your accuser. Karasu telepathically addressed John, saying, tell them, no question. We want to find some solid evidence to prove you innocent and we can't find it with Conjure. R.O. here. Also, lower your head to show them you are feeling ashamed yourself. John said, lowering his head toward the judge, no questions. The judge said, very well, and the disc that was keeping the pirate in the air sank with ease. Master, Conjure. R.O. is leaving, Karasu stated to her master via telepathy. You got it, Karasu. Shan, Ryu said. Flash, said Karasu. Flash got up after giving a nod. He yelled to get everyone's attention, I object. You call this a trial? I say this is a joke? Remove him, cried one judge. When Flash arrived at the middle of the gallery facing the judges, 2 reptilian guards attempted to apprehend him, but he was able to avoid them due to his superior speed. Karasu said, repeat after me, Flash, listen to me, you. Flash repeated after Karasu. Listen to me. You need to hear both sides in the important matter like this, and he ducked to one side to avoid the guards. Flash was halted by the female judge, who said, Wait. This being may have a point. We don't want any lingering thoughts about our final judgment, do we? Of course not, said the other one of the judges. But who will speak for Jon Stewart? I will, said Flash. Very well, said the judge. But be aware, if you lose, you will share the same penalty as the accused. Flash knew that, so he nodded his head. According to the female judge, you may proceed. Flash said, Now, what? To Karasu. Karasu advised him to do what you do best to confuse them until they're ready to crack. That I can do, announced Flash. Somewhere in there is an insult, I simply know. Then the hero in the red costume began talking like some random lawyers that no one could even understand. However, it succeeded in causing some misunderstanding in the courtroom. When Jon heard Flash, his perspiration stopped. Was it Ryu's intention to kill me by making Flash my lawyer? Speaking of Ryu, he and Hawkgirl had parted ways because they had agreed to split their work in order to save time. Ryu had chosen to spy on the space pirate, and Hawkgirl had chosen to learn a few things from the other Green Lanterns. He observed Conjure Aro conversing with a manhunter. Jon and his trial were on their minds. Ryu gave the manhunter a narrowed look. This manhunter had a peculiar quality. Before he sank into the earth to follow the pirate, he thought, his voice doesn't sound like it should. Jon and Superman got on the javelin. The question that had been bothering him ever since they left the courthouse was asked by the Martian. Jon questioned Superman, is there any specific reason Ryu wants to investigate a Juris Point 4? Maybe, figuring out what happened on a Juris Point 4 will give a clue to find the person who was pulling the strings behind the scenes, said Superman. He only made a guess. Hawkgirl saw the Lantern Corps as soon as she walked into the cantina. In fact, their green uniforms made them easy to spot. The woman with the wings approached the table where the lanterns were sitting. Waiter, another order of rings over here, cried a werewolf. Like humanoid lantern. Arcus Chummock was his name. He was stocky and had brown fur. Lifting her mace and setting it on the other hand, Hawkgirl demanded, why aren't you helping or supporting your fellow lantern at the trial? Gallius Zed, who had a big head and 2 arms and 3 legs, sneered, we couldn't stand that farce of trial anymore. Arcus went on to say, that piece of trash Jon has made us all look bad, before downing his drink. One lantern chose to avoid that conversation, while the other 2 agreed with them. Tomar. 2 and Larvox were the lanterns who concurred. Larvox resembled a pear-shaped lantern with 1 eye, several arms, and legs, whereas Tomar 2 had orange skin, fins, and a beak on top of its head. Kilowog made the decision to remain out of this. He was a tall alien who looked like a savage cross between a bulldog and a porcine. When Hawkgirl snorted in disgust, she said, I guess that shows how far loyalty goes in the vaunted Green Lantern Corps. Zed sighed. Get off your damn high horse, lady. If you had any common sense you'd steer clear of the lunatic too. Otherwise, his wretched stench will spread all over you, Arcus said. Is that right? Asked Hawkgirl. You're nothing but cowards, the whole lot of you, she said authoritatively as she slammed her mace down in the center of their table. She raised her hand to strike the table again, but someone grabbed it. She looked back and saw Ryu. The words, calm down Hawkgirl, Ryu said. Her hand was in his. Arcus exclaimed, Ryu. As he and the other lantern rose to their feet, they raised their arms and gestured at him with their rings. As his ring began to shine, Kilowog questioned, what are you doing here? Ryu grinned and said, you really want me as your enemy now. All lanterns were pinned down when 6-pinch black chains suddenly erupted from the ground and wrapped around them. They felt helpless, and all the green lanterns dimmed. As they struggled, they noticed chains emerging from Ryu's right hand. Every lantern attempted to use its rings, but to no avail. There's no use trying. This chain can suppress any energy, Ryu replied. Now, shall we talk civilly? All lanterns nodded their heads when they realized there was no way. Ryu pulled all of the chains back to his body and said, good. He moved forward, put his hand under his chin, and sat down on a chair. Kilowog sat down with his fellow lanterns and asked, so what do you want to talk about? About Jon, said Ryu. Do you really think he's responsible for a Juris 4's destruction? Yes, Arcus replied. The witness says this. And who is this witness? Ryu inquired. He said, Conjure Zed. You already know this, so why are you asking? Disregarding his query, Ryu posed another one. What is he? A space pirate, Kilowog remarked, squinting. A pirate means a criminal. So you believe in a criminal statement, but you don't have confidence in your friend's abilities. You don't believe in him. He examined every lantern. Do you really think John is that irresponsible, which could kill 3 billion people? Had his words been enough to persuade them? When Hawkgirl noticed that the majority of the lanterns were staring down in embarrassment, she was shocked. Ryu questioned, did you even check other possibilities? Looking up at Ryu, Zen said, other possibilities? Like, is that pirate telling truth? Or he is lying, and responsible for Ajuris Four's destruction, Ryu claimed, shocking Hawkgirl and everyone else. Hawkgirl reasoned that since he had called Conjure a small fish only hours earlier, he was distorting the facts. Arcus exclaimed in shock, what? Ryu replied, it's a possibility. Maybe, he blasted the planet with powerful bomb or device, but simply, put the blame on John. He chose the time when John's beam hit the planet. Kilowog got up abruptly. Kilowog? Asked Zen. Like the other lanterns, he was perplexed. As he marched out of the cantina, Kilowog exclaimed, John is one of us, and I'm going to help him. Arcus yelled, Kilowog stop. We're also coming with you, and Kilowog was followed by the other lanterns. Ryu saw that Hawkgirl was staring at him in astonishment. He questioned, is something on my face? Hawkgirl shook her head and said, nothing. He had simply controlled the entire Green Lantern Corps. Jean and Superman had already started investigating the moon of Ajuris Point 4. Their spacesuits were gold and gray. As they stood just outside the Javelin, over the edge of the crater, Superman said, now, can you tell me what's wrong with this picture? The final Martian said, the echoes of our pasts, the tragic loss of life. Superman pointed to the moon. No, not that, he said. This. Jean's eyes widened and he exclaimed, it can't be. This moon is still in orbit of a planet that no longer exists, said Superman. This moon should have shot off into space the moment Ajuris Point 4 was destroyed, Jean said, turning to face Superman. Ryu said, this is the mistake of this illusion, next to Superman. When both heroes turned to face Ryu, they noticed that his clothing had changed into a spacesuit. Superman inquired, where is Hawkgirl? She is with my real me. I'm just a clone, Ryu replied. Superman nodded, aware of his ability to clone. He said, so, you know about it? Ryu said, not really. I was unsure about it, but I can see a clear picture, now, as he peered at the location of Ajuris Point 4. He glanced at both heroes and said, it's like an illusion. Someone using a device to generate a projection over whole planet. If I'm correct, it must be somewhere on the moon. Superman remarked, let's go. We'll have to find it, soon. After saying, go ahead. I'll inform the boss, Ryu vanished in a cloud of smoke. Hawkgirl and Ryu were leaving the cantina after concluding their business with the Green Lantern Corps when Ryu unexpectedly regained his clone's memory. As he stopped walking, he said, you won't believe what I found. What? Hawkgirl asked. Ryu began to describe the illusion over Ajuris Point 4 and the moon of Ajuris Point 4. There must be a holographic generator somewhere on the moon, he said. When Hawkgirl said, then we must go there to help them to find it. Take my ship. It is in the spaceport, Ryu replied. I have to take care of something. Hawkgirl nodded, then took off in the direction of the spaceport. Ryu sank into the earth as she was out of his line of sight. In order to support John and establish his innocence, Kilowog and the other Green Lanterns attended the trial. John is respected by all lanterns around the universe. His reputation is one of the best, and when you're in a team with John, you know you got a real friend watching your back, Kilowog said with pride. Thank you, Kilowog, said Flash, and then he faced the judges. No more questions for this witness. The tribunal chief yelled, Counselor, to allow the public prosecutor to start his cross-examination. The public prosecutor said, Kilowog, could you explain to me what a Green Lantern does exactly? The response from Kilowog was, oh, that's easy, we catch bad guys. The public prosecutor said, that's commendable, but how do you know who the bad guys are? Shrugging, Kilowog said, we just do. Oh, so you're saying you use your obviously superior intellect to arbitrarily sort out matter of life and death. The public prosecutor made his point this time by raising his hand to the judges. I didn't say yeah kind of, Kilowog replied, becoming perplexed. In an apparent attempt to damage the Lantern Corps' reputation, the prosecutor went on, and then you and the other Green Lanterns enforce these decisions with those incredibly deadly rings. I guess you could put it that way. Lobo triggered his blaster after observing how readily the prosecutor manipulated the facts to his advantage. To buy others some time, he was prepared to cause chaos in the courtroom. "Who said you could do this? Who gave you the right?" yelled the prosecutor. One voice said, "We did," echoing through the courtroom. The humanoids, small and blue-skinned, came into the court. Their black robes extended from the collar to the shoulders and chest in a V shape, stopping in the middle of the chest, ending at a green lantern symbol, and then falling down to cover their legs in red. Despite having different faces and hairstyles, they were all the same size. "Great, a Smurf squad came to save the day," Lobo muttered to himself. "So," Karasu thought, "the Guardians of the Universe are here. I'll have to discuss this with Master." Superman and Jean were standing in front of the enormous, intricate device that Martian had discovered concealed in a crack on the moon of Ajuris Point 4. Superman questioned, "Do you have any idea what this is?" A black spaceship appeared out of nowhere in front of them before Jean could respond. They both knew the spaceship very well. "It's Ryu's ship," added Jean. Hawkgirl emerged from the spaceship when the door opened. She was dressed in a black spacesuit. She took off and landed next to Jean and Superman. Superman inquired, "Where is Ryu?" Hawkgirl replied, "He said he had to take care of something," and then she turned to face the machine. "So this is the machine that made illusion." Hawkgirl's spacesuit suddenly emitted a light, and Merlin materialized there. His words, "This is a hologram generator. It's generating an illusion to hide Ajuris Point 4 from the universe." In short, someone wanted to make it look like John destroyed Ajuris Point 4, said Superman. It would explain why this moon is still in orbit. Hawkgirl said, "Then let's destroy it," raising her mace to do away with the device. The area began to tremble, and suddenly the cracks appeared on the ground in front of them. Soon, 4 enormous robots emerged from underground and tunneled to the surface, revealing the reason. With 2 sporting drill bits for hands and the rest having enormous pincers that resembled pliers, the 4 enormous purple-gray machines were almost 8 feet tall. Superman remarked, "Interesting welcome committee. There is no reason to be concerned about them," Merlin stated, raising his hand. When his eyes flashed blue, all of the robots seemed to freeze in place before collapsing to the ground. Hawkgirl inquired, "What did you do to them?" "In other words, I deactivated them," Merlin. It was his straightforward response. Superman questioned, "You can do that?" He had never seen anything like that before. According to Merlin, "Well, because I'm that awesome." Hawkgirl raised her mace once more and declared, "Let's destroy this machine." Merlin's words, "No need to be hurry," prevented her from acting recklessly, which might have cost them their lives, but not his. "First, let me scan it for precaution." The Manhunters, all mechanical peacekeepers, filed into an empty warehouse and formed a line in front of their leader, resembling a platoon of soldiers. The head Manhunters responded, "It is time, brothers, time to avenge 1,000 years of grievances. It is time to regain our power and dignity." His words were met with a collective roar of approval from the assembled hunters. The plan was worked out flawlessly so far. With the help of our new brother, we have sown dissension amongst the Lantern Corps and stained their reputation forever. Furthermore, we have succeeded in drawing out the leader of our most hated enemies away from their stronghold and home planet of Oa. Yes, they're here, the Guardians. The hunters in the area roared, "Destroy them! Destroy them all!" "No, my brothers, not here, not yet. Our destiny lies back at Oa, but rest assured, the Guardians will burn. For we are the Manhunters." The Manhunters all yelled, "No man escapes the Manhunters, together." Who lurked in the shadows, Ryu thought, was interesting. Everything he needed to know had been discovered. However, who is this new brother of these hunters who were turned down? "Master," telepathically, Karasu said. To which Ryu replied, "Yes, Karasu-chan. The Guardians are here. Thank for information." Ryu heard Merlin's voice just as he was about to teleport out of that place. "Master, we have found out the holographic generator. Good job. Thanks." Before lowering himself to the ground, Ryu took another look at all of the Manhunters. One of the Guardians had defended John on the stand back on Ajuris Point 5. The public prosecutor questioned, "You give the Green Lanterns their power, but are you in control of it?" "It is true. We Guardians control the Lantern Corps' power source, but the individual Lanterns have complete autonomy with their power rings," the Guardian responded. "So if one of them does something wrong, it's not your fault," the public prosecutor said, attempting to manipulate the response. Guards were taken aback by the small blue Guardian, who attempted to explain. "You misunderstand. We give them autonomy because we trust their experience and no other questions. I have no further questions for this witness. How much more can we hear? We demand an immediate judgment, the public prosecutor said, growing irritated at the continual disruptions and delaying the inevitable. I object. Flash yelled, without dignity. The judges yelled, overruled, as they grew weary of his persistent protests. Having heard all facts, we will, declared the chief judge. Hold on, he said, rising like a ghost from the ground, according to Ryu's interpretation. In front of the judges, he dropped the unconscious body of Conjure Ro from his personal dimension. When he was leaving the alley after meeting the Manhunter, he had caught the space pirate. Lobo said, finally, as he began to grow bored. As Karasu flowed up and landed on Ryu's shoulder, he got up from his chair. What's meaning of this? Yelled the public prosecutor. Despite the guards' attempts to apprehend him, Ryu chose to ignore him and proceeded in judge's direction. Could tell me what Jon Stewart's crime is? To which the public prosecutor replied, he killed 3 billion people. Through the link, Ryu inquired, Merlin, are you ready? Yes, master, said Merlin. The barrier surrounding the holographic generator vanished as he entered a command on the holographic screen to neutralize it. Hawkgirl, do it. The holographic generator was reduced to space junk when Hawkgirl raised her charged mace and hurled it at it. I'm just waiting for this, she said. To the surprise of the public prosecutor, the tribunal, the gallery, and even Flash, the Green Lantern Corps, and the Guardians, the blue planet reappeared in the Ajuris Point 5 skyline, and Ryu questioned, how did he kill 3 billion people when Ajuris Point 4 is still there? Ryu chose to respond to their unspoken query. Ajuris Point 4 was never destroyed. It's right where it always was. It was all an illusion, a frame. Up, he stated. Then, he faced the bounty hunter. Lobo, wake up that pirate. The space pirate opened his eyes when Lobo picked him up and shook him to wake him up, but he was afraid to see the notorious bounty hunter up close. Lobo let the pirate fall to the floor. Ryu said, tell them everything, in a chilly manner. Conjure Ro uttered the words, the Manhunters. They gave me money for this, loudly. Everyone, including the Guardians, was clearly shaken by this new revelation as his voice reverberated throughout the courtroom. The judges ruled, very well, Jon Stewart is innocent, he is free from all charges. Lobo yelled, hey, the Smurfs are leaving, and gestured toward the Guardians. All of the Green Lanterns perspired when they heard the Guardians' moniker, even though Flash tried not to laugh. Flash questioned, but where are they going? The Manhunter's base, replied Ryu. The Green Lantern Corps, Ryu, Lobo, and Flash arrived at the Manhunter's base. The other members of the Justice League joined them a few seconds later. They witnessed the Guardians departing once more. It's too late, we need to return right away, one Guardian said anxiously. He was floating a few inches off the ground with his fellow Guardians. Flash blocked the Guardians' path by running and stopping in front of them. He said, not so fast. Ignoring Flash, the Guardians floated up to get past him, but Superman got in the way. He demanded, what's going on? We'll have to return Oa, immediately. We don't have time for this, one Guardian remarked. Then use my ship. It's much faster than yours, Ryu replied. And you can also explain everything in the way. That was accepted by the Guardians. It was a very wise choice. Inside Ryu's stealth ship, which was enormous from the inside, were all the Guardians, heroes, and bounty hunters. One Guardian declared, the Manhunters are heading back to Oa. Kilowog asked, back to Oa? They've been there before? The Guardians created the Manhunters, Ryu replied. What? Flash asked incredulously. How are you aware of this? I love to collect the information, Ryu had answered. The Guardians gave a head nod. Before the Lantern Corps, that is. Although we believed that robots would be effective peacekeepers, they had drawbacks. One Guardian clarified, they are incapable of comprehending the fine distinctions between good and evil. And you didn't scrap them altogether? Hawkgirl asked, shaking her head. For smaller tasks like tracking, hunting, and guarding, we reprogrammed them. They made no protests, the Guardian retorted. Not out loud anyway, but enough for someone twist them up like a bunch of wind-up toys and set them loose on Oa, Ryu replied. What do you mean? John inquired. There are others besides the Manhunters. They have someone assisting them, Ryu clarified. Who? Superman asked. Merlin appeared before them and said, maybe this will answer your question. I found this symbol when I scanned the holographic machine and the robots that had attacked on us on Ajuris 4's moon. Opening a holographic screen, He displayed the symbol that Superman was so familiar with. A triangle made up of 3 circles joined by 2 lines that formed a V, with the circles at the ends and angles. Brainiac is helping the Manhunters, Superman said, his eyes watering. Why, though, is Brainiac assisting them? Did Flash ask. He intends to consume and destroy all of the universe's knowledge in order to carry out his programming. What could be more helpful with that than the Guardian's knowledge and power? Superman clarified. John said, it doesn't matter why he's doing this, we need to shut him and those Manhunters down for good. How are we going to defeat them all? Flash asked, turning to face the Guardians. I mean, most of us were getting our ass handed to us back on Earth, he inquired. An online subspace frequency connects the Manhunters directly to our top-tier computers in Oa. The other Guardians must have disconnected them by now, so it can offer the best strategy on the field, the Guardian explained. Thus, the likelihood of defeating them is higher. Hi, Flash. Catch. Ryu threw something in Flash's direction. When Flash caught it, he noticed that it was a cylindrical, metallic object with a single tiny button. What is it? Have you ever seen the Star Wars movies? Ryu inquired. Yes, but why? Confused, Flash asked. Because it is a light saber in your hand, Ryu replied. Really? Flash asked before he pressed a button and a long, white-colored energy blade formed on the top of the device. Cool, I feel like I have become a Jedi, he said, swinging the blade 2 or 3 times in the air. Is it really a good idea to give Flash something like this? Hawkgirl questioned Ryu. No, one of my safest weapons is a light saber. Don't worry, nothing negative will occur, Ryu assured Hawkgirl. Abruptly, Hawkgirl almost escaped the light saber's impalement. Flash said, I'm sorry, it just slipped from my hand. With her arms folded, Hawkgirl turned to face Ryu and said, the safest weapons, yeah, right. She glared at him as she spoke. Ryu replied, well, it's safe for the person who is holding it. Almost all of the Corps was currently off base due to the trial and other incidents in different sectors, leaving only half of the Guardians as the only line of defense against the Manhunters' invasion. The fierce battle continued, with the remaining Guardians powering the Corps' stronghold's automatic defense systems. The Manhunters could be destroyed with a single blast by the various guns and laser turrets, but the sheer number of the robotic invaders was too great for the Guardians to handle, and they soon spread out to breach the interior of the towers that housed the larger cannons and hack their circuitry to bring them under Manhunters' control. As they emerged from the stealth ship, the heroes and Lantern Corps dispersed to engage the Manhunters, leaving only Ryu and Lobo close to the spaceship, while the Guardians went to assist other Guardians in maintaining the barrier around the Corps. So, what's the plan, Ninja Man? Lobo inquired. Destroy every tin cans, Ryu said with a sly smile. Lobo said, Main Man likes the plan, and he rode his space bike in the direction of the Manhunters, unloading his entire arsenal. After calling forth a single chakra chain and consuming it with the black flame, Ryu smirked and began slicing the Manhunters as he ran toward the closest Manhunter and swung his chain, slicing him in half like a knife through butter. Lobo was using his blaster to blast through every robot in his path while Ryu was using his super hot chakra chain to cut the Manhunters. Unsatisfied with the outcome, Lobo pulled out a grenade and threw it directly into the center of a stationary group of Manhunters who were firing at him, sending robot parts flying everywhere. Flash wasn't behind them, and he was killing as many Manhunters as he could with his new Jedi light saber and super speed. Cool, he said as he blurred across the ground towards an area heavily invested with Manhunters. The robots were chopped into pieces before they could even contemplate reacting. The Manhunters firing from a distance at the speedster found all their blasts deflected by his energy blade. I am a badass Jedi. Is he okay? When John noticed Flash's strange behavior, he asked. He used an energy shield to deflect lasers. Maybe he likes Star Wars too much, Superman remarked, flinging one Manhunter at the other as his perspiration dropped. The final Martian, Jean, turned intangible and phased into the Manhunter. Controlled cannons, diverting fire from the ground assaults. Hawkgirl immediately headed for one of the Manhunter. Controlled cannons, deftly avoiding incoming fire before slamming the turret to pieces with her mace. The remaining Lanterns were using their rings to destroy the Manhunters, with only the superior numbers of the Manhunters preventing them from defeat. Superman, using his strength and invulnerability, plowed right through the Manhunters, where John destroyed the enemy numbers with concentrated laser blasts of Lantern energy. He smirked and ran towards the Manhunters, phasing through robots and all of their attacks, stopping when he phased through the final Manhunter. He stood in front of 10 manhunters who were securing the path that led to the entrance to the core battery. He raised his right arm slightly before flattening it out with all of his fingers next to each other, leaving no space between them, and a black spark between each finger. He flew towards the entrance to the core battery without turning around. The manhunters he had left behind lay on the ground, their upper bodies parted from their lower bodies as if they had been sliced by a sharp sword. This technique was something Ryu had developed to get around a flaw in the dimensional phasing, which was that you couldn't hurt your target without solidifying yourself. In other words, it was like a saw that moved back and forth between dimensions, so if Ryu couldn't move, it couldn't cut. This technique allowed Ryu to postpone the dimension in which he existed, which allowed him to go through all matter and create the ultimate blade. In the middle, Superman and John joined Ryu as he was flying toward the core battery's entrance. The main barrier had already fallen deep inside the central core, leaving only the shielding around the core battery's entrance. Outside it stood the head Manhunter and Brainiac himself, who had taken off his Manhunter disguise. Brainiac was tall, had a purple metallic body, white eyes, and his symbol was on his forehead. He used energy, draining devices in his palms to drain the remaining energies from the weakened Guardians, allowing the central core to be fully unlocked. The head Manhunter entered, but before Brainiac could follow him, Superman flew in and collided with him. Brainiac was pushed away from the entrance by Superman, who then punched him, sending him flying backwards and slamming into the wall. "Go ahead, Ryu, John, I'll take care of him." After saying that, he watched as Ryu and John nodded and took off for the core battery. When he turned around, he saw Brainiac standing up. Kal. El Saeed Brainiac. Ryu and John noticed the head Manhunter had entered a massive reactor shaped like a lantern when they arrived in the core room. No. John tried to stop the head Manhunter by screaming, but it was too late because the robot had already entered. As the energy began to build up around the robot, the head Manhunter screamed and the green energy bolts began to be released. When the rest of the Guardians finally showed up, they were powerless to stop the robot from growing until he was 100 meters tall, having shed his metallic skeleton and become a part of the energy itself. "I am in control." As he continued to gather energy from each ring nearby, the giant let out a scream. Ryu thought, well, he stole lines from He-Man, recalling the cartoon character with the muscular body who would always yell like this when he gained power. John lost the aura and the energy of his ring, and the Guardians themselves lost energy as they grew weak. The final Guardian exclaimed, "All is lost," before passing out. John remarked, "Not while I'm still standing." Ryu looked at Green Lantern and said, "Let's see what John can do." He could always corrupt the energy, but he had made the decision not to. John started the oath by pushing his arm forward and closing his eyes to focus. "In brightest day, in blackest night," he said. The energy began to seep into John's rings as the Manhunter's body began to warp. "No, I'll not allow it." The monster spun around and launched a barrage of energy blasts at John, but Ryu's black energy shield deflected them. John went on with his oath, saying, "Nothing bad will evade my view. Let those who worship the power of evil." "No, I came very close." As he entered John's ring, the monster yelled. As he concluded the oath, John aimed his ring and sent a tremendous collective blast of energy back into the core, saying, "Beware my power, the light of the Green Lantern." "We chose wisely when we offered you the ring," the head Guardian said, as the Guardians proceeded to John after regaining their strength and vitality. Lobo was present, the Lantern Corps and the remaining heroes gathered around them, and Superman was the last to approach. "Whatever became of Brainiac?" John inquired. Superman said, "I've taken care of him," while displaying Brainiac's ruined face. Flash exhaled a sigh of relief and said, "So it's finally over." Ryu abruptly said, "Sorry to say this, but it's far from over," to get everyone's attention. "What are you saying?" "Brainiac and Manhunters are gone," Hawkgirl inquired. "Nothing remains of them in this place." The Guardian looked at Ryu, who said, "Brainiac is in your system." They were all in a large room with numerous holographic screens that broadcast Brainiac symbols, the room that the Guardians used to control all of Oa's systems. "Hello, Kal. El," Brainiac responded. "You stopped me from obtaining the Lantern's power, but I've now all their knowledge and whole Oa." The Guardians walked over to the computer and attempted to operate it. "It's useless," concluded Brainiac. Ryu put both of his hands on the computer and said, "Let me try," as he approached the Guardians. "What you can do where they failed," sneered Brainiac. "More than you think." Ryu grinned and triggered his Sharingan. "What?" Brainiac shouted when one screen replaced by a red symbol. The symbol had 4 concentric circles in a ripple pattern with 9 tomo in the 3 circles closest to the center. How did you do that? Without responding, Naruto grinned and a red symbol took the place of 2 more screens. All right. How is he handling this? Did Flash ask. Your friend has cyberkinesis power, remarked one of the Guardians, who, as immortals, knew a great deal about everything. He can manipulate technology around him. Whoa! Flash said, turning to face Ryu and noticing that there was only 1 screen remaining. No, I am unbeatable, Brainiac bellowed. It was more difficult for Ryu to remove Brainiac entirely from the system, so he focused. Merlin, he dialed. Merlin appeared next to Ryu, and he touched his master's shoulder. In the center of both eyes was a symmetrical, straightened version of Madara's eternal Mangekyo Sharingan design. Ryu's eyes flashed red, and his normal Sharingan changed to resemble a 5-pointed star or pentagram. His right eye had the ordinary, point up, pentagram, while his left eye had the inverted, point down, pentagram. Ryu and Merlin discovered that they were inside the system, and the entire area was white. They could see that the only things in the area were themselves, a green dot, and the white void of light that seemed to go on forever. Where is Brainiac now? Ryu inquired. He's there, Merlin said, pointing to the green dot far away. He uttered those words. All right, let's go, Ryu said. They vanished and then resurfaced in front of the green sphere that contained Brainiac's symbol. You, from the sphere, Brainiac's voice said, I'll delete both of you. After saying, we'll see it, Merlin conjured up a tiny ball that was made up of 0 and 1 and hurled it at Brainiac, but it never made it there because it struck a barrier that caused the ball to ripple and deflect. Several metal tentacles emerged from Brainiac's spherical body and attempted to encircle Ryu and Merlin's bodies. It's useless, he said. I'm strongest here. Merlin and Ryu both leapt back to escape the assault. Ryu said, then time to change it, with red flashes in his eyes. There was no ground and no earth, only death and decay, smiling skulls, and nibbling ratsa, and the emptiness of the white world around them began to fill with worms and maggots, a rotting, squirming, cawing, crow made trees, and a blood-red moon. Brainiac made another attempt to conjure his tentacles, but it was unsuccessful. Ryu floated up in the air and said, there's no use trying, this is my world. I am the god here. Brainiac exclaimed, difficult. Shuriken rained down on Brainiac, piercing his barrier as if it were non-existent and becoming lodged in his spherical body, and Ryu waved his hand. Ryu gave the order, Merlin, do your work. A ball composed of 0 and 1 was conjured by Merlin and hurled at Brainiac. However, this time, it struck Brainiac. No. Brainiac sobbed before turning into a statistic. He raised the sphere and said, with this, we can easily take our technology to the next level. Merlin held his hand while the data collected over his palm took the shape of a sphere. We have not only most of the knowledge of the Guardians but also Brainiac's all knowledge, he said. With a nod, Ryu remarked, this is one of the highest achievements in our life. No one in the room spoke, and everyone had been watching Ryu and Merlin stand in the same spot for the last 5 minutes. He's taking far too long. Frustrated, said Flash. Be patient, Flash, suggested Jean. The final screen that displayed Brainiac's symbol abruptly changed to Ryu's red symbol, and Ryu took his hands off the OA's main computer. Has Brainiac left? Superman inquired. Pulling his hand from Ryu's back, Merlin said, yes, we won, and made a victory gesture. This artificial intelligence. Kilowog's fellow lanterns nodded their heads in agreement as he said, it's really energetic. Flash remarked, so, Brainiac is finally gone, forever. We have only demolished one piece of Brainiac. Many copies of him are still in circulation in the universe, Ryu informed him. That sucks, Flash muttered, his shoulders slumping. Thank you for saving Zoa, Ryu said as the head Guardian walked up to him. After giving the Guardian a holographic pad, Ryu said, well, here is the cost of my service, after giving it some thought. What? The Guardian took the pad from Ryu's hand despite his bewildered statement. John said, and here I thought he had changed, as his perspiration fell. Main Man believed that Ninja Man had transformed into the Big Cheese. In total contrast to Green Lantern, Lobo said, but thanks, he is still the same. We're fortunate, John. Because it is not easy to handle someone who has several powers like him, Hawkgirl said, disregarding Lobo's statement as she turned to face Ryu, who was getting his money from the Guardians. And devilish mind, Jean continued, Hawkgirl gave a nod. I must admit he is not a hero material, Superman said as he looked at Ryu. But still, he is a good person and much better than most of the villains we've faced. A few days had gone by since Oa's incident, and everything was going well for the Justice League. Aside from minor, everyday crimes, nothing significant had happened on Earth. As for Ryu or Naruto, he had been working on his new project during this time. The shuttle that arrived at the mothership was empty. Naruto had captured the Imperium before he could enter his shuttle, using his and Karasu's illusions on the members of the Justice League to do so. He stood in front of two glass tanks in his underground laboratory, one of which held the body of the white-skinned alien and the other the body of its master, Imperium, both of whom were in a state of hibernation. With our new knowledge, I was able to extract all secrets of their bodies, explained Merlin. Well done. Put them out of your way, Naruto said. They're useless to us. With a nod, Merlin injected a red liquid into each tank, which began to melt the bodies of the two aliens. Instead of waiting for the process to be finished, Naruto turned and left, walking toward a highly secured section of his lab. He put his hand on the door, and it slid open, revealing two more tanks, each containing Zetsu's two halves. White Zetsu, who had yellow eyes and short green hair, and Black Zetsu, who was nearly entirely black, with no visible orifices other than his iris. White Zetsu's eye was completely white, while Black Zetsu had a proper eye and human-like facial features. Naruto approached the tanks and touched White Zetsu's hand on his right side. The tanks held a green, murky liquid, and although both of Zetsu's halves were alive, they were in suspended animation. Merlin appeared next to Naruto when he called out, Merlin, saying, "It's time to start Project Zetsu."
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.